before the chaos of Shibuya, before Yuji Itadori watches the world fall apart in front of him, before Satoru Gojo is sealed away. The story takes us back to the year 2006. At this time, Gojo is not yet the untouchable teacher that everyone in the present day knows. He is still a student at Tokyo Jujutsu High. He is already arrogant, already brilliant, already born with the limitless technique and the 6 eyes, but he is still young. He laughs easily. He shows off. He pushes people around with his confidence. And beside him is Suguru Geto, his closest friend, his equal in reputation, and the one person who can stand next to him without being swallowed by his presence. This beginning is important because Season 2 is not just about fights. It is about the moment the future becomes inevitable. It is about how a friendship breaks, how ideals rot, how the strongest sorcerer becomes isolated, and how the consequences of one summer eventually explode years later inside Shibuya. Back then, Gojo and Geto are called the strongest together. Not Gojo alone, not Geto beneath him, together. Gojo has overwhelming inherited power, and Geto has a technique that allows him to absorb cursed spirits and control them. Their personalities are different, but they balance each other. Gojo is loud, careless, and disrespectful toward authority. Geto is calmer, more polite, and at first more morally serious. He believes that jujutsu sorcerers exist to protect ordinary people. He believes the strong must protect the weak. Gojo does not care for that kind of noble explanation as much. To Gojo, power is power, and being strong means being free. Their teacher, Masamichi Yaga, sends them on a mission that appears simple at first, but it becomes the emotional origin point for much of the season. They must protect a girl named Riko Amanai. Riko is known as the Star Plasma Vessel. She is meant to merge with Master Tenjin, a being who maintains the barriers that protect the jujutsu world. Tenjin is not a normal human anymore. Tenjin has lived for a very long time through a special, immortal cursed technique. But immortality does not mean the body stays unchanged forever. If Tenjin does not merge with a compatible star plasma vessel at the proper time, Tenjin may evolve into something beyond humanity, something that may no longer have a human will, and that could threaten the entire jujutsu world. So Riko Amanai is not just a schoolgirl. To jujutsu society, she is a necessary sacrifice. Her life is already being treated like a ritual tool. She is young, cheerful, stubborn, and full of life. But the adults around her have already accepted that she will disappear. The mission has 2 threats. One threat is from curse users who want the bounty placed on Riko. The other is from a religious group called the Time Vessel Association. This group worships Master Tenjin as a pure being, and they believe the merger with Riko would contaminate Tenjin. They want Riko dead, so the merger cannot happen. The irony is painful. One side wants Riko delivered, so she can lose herself in Tenjin. Another side wants Riko killed, so Tenjin remains unchanged. In both cases, Riko herself is treated as less important than what she represents. Gojo and Geto are assigned to protect her until the time of the merger. When they meet Riko, she does not act like a frightened victim. She announces herself with confidence. She claims that she and Tenjin are one and the same. She speaks as if she has accepted her destiny completely. this confidence is partly a mask. Riko has been raised to believe that her purpose is to merge with Tenjin, and she tries to speak as if that purpose gives her life meaning. But she is still a girl who goes to school. She still has friends. She still has a caretaker named Misato Kurei, who is almost like family to her. She still laughs and gets embarrassed and wants to live small human moments before her life ends. This is where the hidden inventory arc becomes very delicate. The story does not rush immediately into battle. It lets us spend time with Riko. It lets us understand that she is not a sacred object. She is a person. She goes to school while assassins hunt her. She jokes with Gojo and Geto. She cares deeply about Kurei. She tries to pretend that she is above fear, but she is surrounded by people who keep reminding her that her future has already been decided. Gojo and Geto protect Riko from attacks. One curse user attempts to kill her at school, but the mission does not truly feel dangerous to Gojo at first. He is confident because he is Gojo. His infinity keeps attacks from touching him. He can see cursed energy at an extraordinary level because of the 6 eyes. Geto is also powerful enough to handle most threats. Together, they seem impossible to defeat. But the man who will break that illusion is introduced quietly and with menace. His name is Toji Fushiguro. Toji is different from Jujutsu sorcerers. He was born into the Zenin clan, one of the major Jujutsu families, but he has no cursed energy at all. In the Jujutsu world, this would usually be treated as a weakness or even a disgrace. But Toji's body was sharpened by a heavenly restriction. Because he has no cursed energy, his physical abilities are pushed to a monstrous level. His senses, speed, strength, and reflexes are beyond normal humans and beyond most sorcerers. He is invisible to many forms of cursed energy detection because there is no cursed energy to sense. He fights with cursed tools and pure physical skill. Toji takes the assassination job on Riko, but he does not rush in. He understands that Gojo is the greatest obstacle. Instead of challenging him directly from the beginning, Toji uses time, pressure, and exhaustion. He places a bounty on Riko and allows other curse users to attack first. This keeps Gojo active and alert for days. Gojo keeps Infinity running constantly to protect himself and Riko. Even someone as gifted as Gojo is still young at this time. He has not yet perfected the automatic use of his technique. He gets tired. That is what Toji is waiting for. The mission takes Riko, Gojo, Geto, and Kurei to Okinawa after Kurei is kidnapped. Riko is frightened because Kurei is precious to her, but the rescue succeeds. After that, Gojo decides they should stay in Okinawa longer. He wants Riko to enjoy herself. This is one of the softer moments in the arc. Gojo, the arrogant boy who talks as if nothing matters, quietly chooses to give Riko more time. Geto understands why. The merger is approaching. Once it happens, Riko will vanish as herself. So they let her have a little more ordinary happiness. She swims. She smiles. She spends time near the ocean. For a while, the story feels warm. But that warmth is part of the tragedy. The longer Riko feels human, the crueler her fate becomes. When the group returns to Tokyo Jujutsu High, they believe they are safe. The school grounds are protected by barriers. The mission is almost complete. Gojo lowers his guard. That is when Toji appears. Toji attacks Gojo with perfect timing. He stabs him from behind, surprising him in a place where Gojo believed they were protected. Gojo survives the first strike, but the fight reveals that Toji is not like other enemies. He uses cursed tools to bypass Gojo's technique. One of the most important tools is the inverted spear of heaven, a blade that can forcibly cancel cursed techniques. Against most people, Gojo's infinity means he cannot be touched. But if a weapon can neutralize that technique, then the untouchable boy can bleed. Gojo fights Toji, while Geto takes Riko toward the tombs of the Star Corridor, the place where the merger with Tenjin is supposed to occur. Gojo tells Geto to continue. He trusts Geto to finish the mission. This is another sign of how deep their bond is. They split without doubt because each believes the other can handle his role. Inside the corridor, the emotional center of the arc arrives. Geto brings Riko to the threshold of her fate. Kuroi is with them. Riko has reached the place where she is supposed to stop being herself. But Geto does not simply force her forward. He tells her that she has a choice. He says that if she wants to reject the merger and live as herself, he and Gojo have already talked about it, and they will protect her. This matters deeply because Geto's original belief is that sorcerers protect the weak. In this moment, Riko is the weak person trapped beneath the machinery of the Jujutsu world. Geto offers her freedom. Riko breaks. The mask falls away. She admits that she wants to live. She wants to stay with everyone longer. She wants more time. She wants the ordinary life that was taken from her before she even understood it. For one brief second, the story allows hope. Then Toji shoots her. Riko dies instantly. The sound of that moment changes the entire season. It is not a heroic death. It is not a dramatic sacrifice. She is killed just as she chooses life. Geto stands there in shock. The girl he promised to protect is gone. The mission has failed. The person has been erased. Toji appears and tells Geto that Gojo is dead. This is not true in the final sense, but at that moment, Toji believes it. And for Geto, it means the world has collapsed. Riko is dead. Gojo has been defeated. The mission is over. Geto attacks Toji, but Toji is brutally effective against him too. Geto's cursed spirit manipulation is dangerous, but Toji's speed, weapons, and experience allow him to overwhelm Geto. Geto tries to absorb Toji's storage curse, but because Toji has a master-servant relationship with it, the attempt fails. Toji defeats Geto and leaves him alive. Toji takes Riko's body to the Time Vessel Association. The members of the group applaud. This is one of the most disturbing scenes in the season, not because of blood, but because of what it shows Geto later. These ordinary people are clapping for the death of a child. They are celebrating because their belief has been protected. To them, Riko was not a girl. She was a threat to their worship. Their joy becomes one of the seeds of Geto's hatred. But Gojo is not dead. On the edge of death, Gojo awakens. Until this point, he has not mastered reverse cursed technique. Reverse cursed technique allows a sorcerer to heal by multiplying negative cursed energy into positive energy. Gojo, pushed to the boundary between life and death, finally understands it. He heals himself. He stops being simply a prodigy with overwhelming talent. and becomes something much closer to the untouchable figure we know in the present. When Gojo returns, he is changed. He is almost euphoric. He has touched the core of cursed energy in a way he had never understood before. He tells Toji that throughout heaven and earth, he alone is the honored one. This line marks his awakening, but in this script, we do not need to repeat it as a quote. The meaning is clear. Gojo has realized the full distance between himself and almost everyone else. He uses the reversal of his limitless technique, red, which repels. He combines that understanding with blue, which attracts. Then he uses hollow purple, a destructive technique formed from the collision of those forces. Toji, who had seemed unstoppable, is hit and fatally wounded. The man who defeated Gojo once is defeated by the awakened Gojo. As Toji dies, he remembers his son. This son is Megumi. Toji had left the Zenin clan and eventually arranged for Megumi to be sold to them because Megumi inherited a valuable cursed technique. At the end of his life, Toji tells Gojo about Megumi, saying that in a few years the boy will be sold to the Zenin clan, and Gojo can do what he wants with that information. This moment is strange because Toji is not suddenly redeemed as a loving father in a simple way. He is still violent, selfish, and damaged. But somewhere in him, there is a final instinct that gives Megumi a chance to avoid the Zenin clan's control. Gojo retrieves Riko's body from the Time Vessel Association. Geto is there too. The members are still applauding. Gojo asks if they should kill them all. In that moment, Gojo is capable of it. He is calm, frighteningly calm, and the people around him seem insignificant. But Geto says there is no meaning in killing them. At that time, Geto is still holding onto his moral structure. He still believes there needs to be a reason. He still believes sorcerers should not kill ordinary people without purpose. But the tragedy is that Geto is the one who will eventually abandon that belief. After the Star Plasma Vessel mission, Gojo becomes stronger and stronger. He perfects the automatic operation of infinity, so threats can be filtered without conscious effort. He learns to keep his technique running while healing his brain with reverse cursed technique. He becomes able to do missions alone. The balance between Gojo and Geto changes. They were once the strongest together. Now Gojo is becoming the strongest alone. This is painful for Geto in a quiet way. He is not jealous in a simple childish sense. The real problem is that the mission broke his faith, and Gojo's rise leaves him alone with the questions that follow. What are sorcerers protecting? Why are they dying for ordinary people who cannot even understand them? Why are curses born from the negative emotions of ordinary humans, while sorcerers must risk their lives cleaning up the consequences? Why did Riko die? Why did the Time Vessel Association clap? These questions continue to poison him. The arc called Premature Death shows that Geto's fall is not sudden. It is a slow infection of the soul. He continues working as a sorcerer. He eats cursed spirits as part of his technique, and the taste is disgusting. Every curse he absorbs is another reminder of the ugliness produced by human negativity. He starts to look tired. He loses weight. His eyes become distant. The moral certainty he had before begins to crack. Then Hebara dies. Hebara is a younger student at Jujutsu High. He is cheerful, kind, and optimistic. He believes in doing his best as a sorcerer. His death hits Geto hard because it represents the ordinary cruelty of the Jujutsu world. Young sorcerers go on missions. Sometimes the information is wrong. Sometimes a curse is stronger than expected. Sometimes they die. Their bodies return, and the world continues. Nanami, who was Heibara's friend and classmate, is deeply affected too. This helps explain why Nanami later leaves Jujutsu work for a time and becomes a salaryman before returning. The system consumes young people and calls it duty. Geto then meets Yuki Tsukumo, a special grade sorcerer who does not take regular missions. Yuki is interested in solving the root cause of curses, not just exorcising them endlessly. She explains that curses are born from cursed energy leaking from ordinary humans. Sorcerers can control cursed energy, so they do not leak it in the same way. This means there are theoretical ways to reduce or eliminate curses. One possibility is to teach all humans to control cursed energy. Another is to remove cursed energy from humans entirely, as happened with Toji through heavenly restriction. But then, the darkest possibility appears in Geto's mind. If curses come from ordinary humans, then a world made only of sorcerers would not produce curses in the same way. Yuki does not tell Geto to kill ordinary people, but the conversation gives shape to the thought already growing inside him. Geto begins to see ordinary humans as the source of the problem. He begins calling them monkeys in his mind, reducing them to something beneath sorcerers. This is the beginning of his ideology as a curse user. The final push happens on a mission to village. Two young girls, Nanako and Mimiko, are being abused and locked in a cage because the villagers blame them for supernatural events. The girls can see curses, and because of that, the ordinary villagers treat them like monsters. When Geto arrives, he sees the girls bruised, frightened, and dehumanized. He also sees the ignorance and cruelty of the villagers. This moment connects all his pain into one conclusion. Sorcerers suffer to protect ordinary humans, but ordinary humans create curses, worship cruel ideas, clap for dead children, and abuse children who are different. Geto kills the village. This is the point of no return. He massacres over 100 people and rescues Nanako and Mimiko. He also kills his own parents. That detail is essential because it proves his ideology is not just emotional revenge against strangers. If he wants a world without ordinary humans, then he cannot make an exception for his own family. His new belief demands total commitment, and he gives himself to it completely. Jujutsu High marks him as a curse user. Gojo confronts him in a busy public area. This meeting is heartbreaking because they are no longer standing side by side. Gojo cannot understand why Geto has chosen this path. Geto explains his new goal. He wants to create a world only for Jujutsu sorcerers. To do that, he believes ordinary humans must be eliminated. Gojo is furious and devastated. He could kill Geto. He is strong enough, but he cannot bring himself to do it. Geto walks away. This separation defines both of them. Geto becomes a curse user and cult leader. Gojo becomes the strongest sorcerer, but also someone who understands that strength alone does not save people. He could not save Riko. He could not save Geto from falling. He could not fix the Jujutsu world by being powerful alone. That is why, in the present, Gojo becomes a teacher. He wants to raise strong allies who can change the world after him. He does not just want students who obey the old system. He wants people who can stand with him and eventually surpass the rotten structure of Jujutsu society. Season 2 then returns to the present, and the emotional weight of the past follows us there. The present-day story leads into the Shibuya Incident. Before Halloween night fully begins, the season shows the secret of Kikichi Muta, also known as Mekamaru. Kikichi is a student from Kyoto Jujutsu High. His real body is fragile and damaged because of a heavenly restriction. In exchange, he has an enormous range of cursed energy that allows him to control puppet bodies from far away. He has been living through Mekamaru because his physical body is too weak to live normally. Kikichi made a binding vow with Mahito and the Curse Users group. He gave them information in exchange for Mahito, using idle transfiguration to heal his body. This means Kikichi acted as a mole, but he did not truly want his friends destroyed. His goal was to get a normal body, then warn Gojo and the others about the enemy's plans. Once Mahito heals him, Kikichi immediately tries to escape and communicate the coming danger. Mahito and Suguru Geto's body are there, but the person using Geto's body is not truly Geto. Season 2 later confirms that someone else is controlling that body. For now, the audience sees the face of Geto, but there is something wrong. This person is calm, calculating, and allied with the curses. He has Geto's cursed spirit manipulation, but the soul behind the face is different. Kikichi fights Mahito using a massive puppet weapon he had prepared. This fight is important because Kikichi is not weak. With preparation, distance, and his stored cursed energy, he can threaten Mahito. He uses attacks designed to damage Mahito's soul, because normal physical damage is not enough against him. Mahito's technique allows him to reshape souls, including his own, so damaging his body does not matter unless the soul is touched. Kikichi understands this and fights with desperation. He wants to live. He wants to meet Miwa and the others in person. He wants the body he was denied. For a brief time, he has it. But Mahito is too dangerous. The fight ends with Kikichi's death. Before dying, however, he prepared small communication devices that activate later and help Yuji during Shibuya. Kikichi fails to stop the incident, but his effort still matters. Then October 31 arrives. Shibuya becomes the center of the disaster. A curtain falls over Shibuya, trapping civilians inside. The civilians can move within the barrier, but they cannot leave. The strange demand spreads through the crowd. The people trapped inside begin calling for Satoru Gojo. This is part of the enemy's plan. They know Gojo will come if civilians are trapped. They also know that if Gojo enters alone, they can focus everything on sealing him. Goal of the villains is not to kill Gojo. Killing Gojo is nearly impossible. He is too strong, too fast, too protected by infinity, too overwhelming in battle. Instead, they plan to seal him using the prison realm, a special cursed object capable of imprisoning almost anything once its conditions are met. To activate it against Gojo, they need to keep him close for a short amount of time after opening it. Against anyone else, that might be simple. Against Gojo, it is almost impossible. So the enemy prepares a psychological trap. Gojo enters Shibuya alone. The Jujutsu higher-ups keep other sorcerers outside because sending too many people into the enclosed civilian area could create more casualties. And because Gojo is the only one who can handle the disaster class curses directly. This is exactly what the villains want. Inside the underground train area, Gojo faces Jogo, Hanami, Choso, and later Mahito's transformed humans. The curses use civilians as shields. They understand that Gojo's strength is limited not by his ability, but by his desire to avoid killing innocent people. This is one of the smartest parts of the Shibuya plan. In open space, Gojo could erase the curses quickly, but underground, surrounded by trapped civilians, he cannot freely use large destructive attacks. The curses attack people around him, force him to divide his attention, and keep pressing him in close quarters. Jogo and Hanami try to use domain amplification, which allows them to neutralize infinity enough to strike him. But even with that, they are not equal to him. Gojo adapts. He fights with terrifying precision. He tears Hanami apart and kills the curse despite the crowded environment. Then the enemy increases the horror. Mahito sends transfigured humans into the station. These are ordinary people whose souls and bodies have been reshaped into monsters. They are victims, but they are also dangerous. Gojo is forced into an impossible moral calculation. If he does nothing, civilians die. If he uses too much power, civilians die. If he hesitates, the curses win. Gojo makes a decision only he could make. He opens his domain expansion, Unlimited Void, for only 0.2 seconds. Unlimited Void floods the minds of those inside with endless information, paralyzing them. A full use would destroy ordinary people. But Gojo calculates that a tiny fraction of a second can stun everyone without killing the civilians outright. In that brief opening, he kills a huge number of transfigured humans with extraordinary speed. This scene shows why Gojo is the strongest, but also why the enemy's trap works. Gojo can solve almost impossible situations, but he still has a human mind. He still processes what he sees. He still reacts to the face of his dead best friend. After the 0.2 second domain expansion, the prison realm is activated. Gojo sees the body of Suguru Geto. For Gojo, this is impossible. He personally killed Geto after the events of the previous story connected to Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Geto should be dead. Seeing him alive for even a moment forces Gojo's mind to stop. The prison realm requires a minute, but that minute is not measured only by normal time. It is a minute inside Gojo's mind. When he sees Geto's body, memories flood him. Their school days, Riko, their friendship, their separation, the pain of killing him. That internal minute passes instantly. The prison realm captures him. Gojo realizes the person in front of him is not truly Geto. He calls attention to the wrongness of the body. In response, the being controlling Geto's corpse reveals part of the truth. He opens the top of the skull and shows a brain with a mouth. This is the ancient curse user later known as Kenjaku, though Season 2 makes the situation clear through the reveal more than through long explanation. He has taken over Geto's body and gained access to Geto's cursed spirit manipulation. Gojo is sealed. This is the turning point of the Shibuya Incident. Everything changes once Gojo is removed from the board. Until that moment, no matter how bad the situation looked, the Jujutsu side had the ultimate answer. If Gojo was present, the disaster could be contained. Once he is sealed, Shibuya becomes a battlefield where everyone else must survive without him. Outside the station, the other sorcerers begin moving. Yuji Itadori learns that Gojo has been sealed through one of Mekamaru's prepared devices. Yuji understands the importance immediately. He has to tell everyone. He runs through Shibuya, shouting that Gojo has been sealed. This is not just information. It is a signal that the entire balance of the world has changed. Different teams enter the chaos. Nanami, Maki, and Naobito Zenin move through the station. Megumi is also drawn deeper into the incident. Nobara is present in Shibuya too, along with other sorcerers. The curtain situation becomes more complicated because multiple barriers are involved, including barriers that trap civilians, block sorcerers, and require specific conditions to break. The enemy has planned the battlefield carefully. One group works to destroy the curtain-keeping sorcerers out. Yuji, Megumi, and Ino confront curse users, protecting the barrier source. This leads to battles on rooftops. Ino fights curse users using his technique connected to auspicious beasts, but he is badly injured by Toji's resurrected body after a seance technique is used. This part introduces another important piece of chaos. A curse user grandmother uses a seance technique to summon information from the dead into a living body. She brings back Toji Fushigiro's body through her grandson. But because Toji's body is so unusual and powerful, it overwhelms the host. Toji returns as a kind of living weapon, driven by instinct. Yuji and Megumi fight the curse user Owasaka, who has an inverse technique that reverses the effect of strong and weak attacks. Strong blows become weak against him, while weaker attacks can hurt more. This forces Yuji and Megumi to think rather than simply overpower him. They figure out the trick and defeat him. This is one of the smaller battles in the arc, but it shows how Shibuya is not just one fight. It is a layered disaster with many moving parts. The barriers begin to fall, but the danger only grows. Mei, Ui, and Yuji encounter a cursed spirit connected to disease, often remembered through the smallpox deity fight. Mei uses her technique, which controls crows, and her battle intelligence to win. She is a grade 1 sorcerer, not because she has flashy inherited power, but because she is efficient, experienced, and ruthless. Her bird strike is powerful because it forces a crow to sacrifice its life in exchange for a devastating attack. This battle also shows Yui's devotion to Mei and the strange dynamic between them. Meanwhile, the sealed Gojo remains inside the prison realm, and Kenjaku's side must protect it. The prison realm becomes too heavy to move for a period after sealing Gojo, which buys the sorcerers a possible chance to retrieve it. But the villains are prepared to defend it, and the battlefield continues to split everyone apart. The next major disaster begins with Dagon. Dagon had appeared earlier as a small cursed womb-like creature among the disaster curses. In Shibuya, he evolves into a far more dangerous form. Nanami, Maki, and Naobito face him. At first, they try to handle him together. Naobito is extremely fast because of his projection sorcery technique, which divides movement into frames and punishes those who fail to follow the rules of that movement. Nanami is precise, durable, and experienced with his ratio technique. Maki, at this time, is physically strong and skilled with weapons, but she still lacks the full power she later becomes known for. Against Dagon, all of them struggle. Dagon opens his domain expansion. Inside the domain, they are trapped on a beach-like space where endless Shikigami attacks are guaranteed to hit. The scene becomes desperate. Nanami and Naobito are overwhelmed by waves of attacks. Maki survives with difficulty, but she is outmatched. Dagon's domain gives him too much advantage. Then Megumi enters and opens his own incomplete domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden, to create a hole in Dagon's barrier. Megumi cannot overpower Dagon's domain completely, but he can interfere with it enough to give the others a chance to escape. This is an important moment for Megumi. His domain is incomplete, but his willingness to use it creatively saves lives. He does not need to win directly. He needs to create an opening. But before the group can fully escape, Toji enters the domain through the opening. Toji's return changes the fight instantly. He grabs Playful Cloud, a special grade cursed tool that scales with physical strength. In Toji's hands, it becomes terrifying. Dagon, who is overwhelming multiple grade 1 level fighters inside his own domain, is suddenly the one being hunted. Toji moves with animal speed and brutal instinct. He beats Dagon down and kills him. The fight shows again that Toji's body is an anomaly in the Jujutsu world. Even without cursed energy, he can destroy special grade threats under the right conditions. But Toji is not truly alive in a normal sense. He is moving through the seance technique's remains, guided by instinct to fight the strongest nearby. After killing Dagon, he turns toward Megumi. This father and son confrontation is quiet compared to the chaos around it, but it is one of the most important emotional moments in Shibuya. Megumi does not know this man is his father. Toji fights him, testing him. Megumi struggles to survive. He uses his shadows, his Shikigami, and his intelligence, but Toji is far beyond him physically. During the fight, Toji asks Megumi his name. Megumi says Fushiguro, not Zenin. That answer matters. It means Megumi did not become property of the Zenin clan. He kept the name Fushiguro. In his own damaged way, Toji seems satisfied. The last piece of his human awareness returns long enough for him to choose death. He stabs himself in the head, ending the revived body before it can kill Megumi. Megumi is left confused, not understanding the full meaning of what just happened. The Shibuya Incident keeps moving without giving anyone time to grieve or understand. Jogo appears after Dagon's death. He sees Dagon dead and becomes enraged. Jogo is a disaster curse born from humanity's fear of the earth and volcanic destruction. He is extremely powerful, but he has always been humiliated when compared to Gojo. Against the wounded sorcerers, he is devastating. He burns Nanami, Maki, and Naobito, leaving them terribly injured. Naobito later dies from his injuries. Maki survives, but this moment becomes part of the suffering that reshapes her future. Jogo then finds Yuji. who has been knocked unconscious after another battle. The villains have collected many of Sukuna's fingers, special-grade cursed objects containing fragments of Ryomen Sukuna's soul and power. Jogo feeds Yuji a large number of fingers at once. Yuji's body is Sukuna's vessel, but consuming so many fingers allows Sukuna to take control. Sukuna awakens in Shibuya. The atmosphere changes immediately. Sukuna is not an ally. He is not Yuji's hidden power in a heroic sense. He is a calamity wearing Yuji's body. The curses may want to use him, but Sukuna does not serve them. Jogo hopes Sukuna will make a binding vow with the curses or lead them into a new age. Sukuna is amused, but he has no loyalty to their cause. He tells Jogo that if Jogo can land even one hit on him, he will obey the curses. This is not a fair challenge. It is a game. Sukuna and Jogo fight across Shibuya. Jogo unleashes enormous firepower, volcanic attacks, and destructive force. Against most sorcerers, he would be overwhelming. But Sukuna treats him like entertainment. The fight shows the difference between a special grade curse and the king of curses. Jogo is strong. Sukuna is something else entirely. At the end, Sukuna defeats Jogo using fire, beating him in the very element that defines him. Jogo experiences a strange emotional moment near death where he sees the other disaster curses. Sukuna acknowledges that Jogo was strong. For Jogo, who lived under the shadow of Gojo's humiliation and wanted curses to replace humans as the true beings of the world, this recognition matters. He dies crying, not because he won, but because Sukuna's acknowledgement reaches something in him. But Sukuna is not finished. He senses Megumi in danger. This is crucial because Sukuna has taken interest in Megumi since earlier in the story. He sees potential in Megumi's 10 Shadows technique, especially in something Megumi himself has not yet fully mastered. During Shibuya, Megumi is badly injured after fighting a curse user named Haruta Shijimo. Haruta is cowardly, cruel, and lucky because of his technique, which stores small miracles that save him from death without him fully understanding them. Megumi, pushed to the edge, decides to use his final option. He begins the ritual to summon 8-handled sword Divergent Sila, Divine General Mahoraga, the most powerful Shikigami of the 10 Shadows technique. No 10 Shadows user in history has fully tamed Mahoraga. The ritual can be used as an exorcism involving multiple participants. But if the summoned Shikigami kills the participants, the ritual ends without taming it. Megumi uses it as a last resort, intending to take Haruta down with him. Mahoraga appears. This Shikigami is terrifying because of its adaptation ability. It can adapt to phenomena after being exposed to them. The wheel above it turns, and once adaptation occurs, the same kind of attack becomes less effective or useless. Haruta is helpless, but Sukuna arrives and realizes that if Mahoraga kills Megumi, Sukuna's interest in Megumi may be ruined. So Sukuna protects the ritual in his own way. He fights Mahoraga himself. This battle is one of the greatest displays of Sukuna's power in Season 2. Sukuna tests Mahoraga, observes its adaptation, and understands the mechanism quickly. He uses slashing attacks, then changes tactics before Mahoraga can fully counter him. To finish the fight, Sukuna opens his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. Sukuna's domain is different from most domains because it does not close a barrier in the usual way. It manifests in the real world with an open barrier, allowing a wide range of destruction. In Shibuya, Sukuna's domain cuts through everything within its range. Buildings, streets, and people are sliced apart. The damage is catastrophic. Sukuna uses it to destroy Mahoraga, then finishes the Shikigami with fire before adaptation can save it. Megumi survives because Sukuna protects him. But countless others die in the destruction. When Yuji regains control of his body, he wakes up in the aftermath of Sukuna's massacre. This is one of Yuji's lowest moments. He sees the destruction and understands that his body was used to kill people. Even though Sukuna did it, Yuji carries the guilt because it happened through him. He vomits. He breaks down. He wants to die. But the incident is not over, and people are still fighting. Yuji forces himself to move, because stopping now would make the deaths meaningless. This is the cruel rhythm of Shibuya. Every time a character reaches emotional collapse, the battle demands that they continue. Nanami, badly burned by Jogo, continues walking through the station like a man already half dead. His body is ruined, but his sense of duty remains. He kills transfigured humans while thinking of Malaysia, of a peaceful beach, of the life he might have chosen if he had left Jujutsu behind completely. Nanami is one of the clearest examples of an adult sorcerer who understands the horror of the job. He does not romanticize it. He knows being a sorcerer is terrible. Yet he returns because there are children like Yuji who should not have to carry everything alone. Yuji finds Nanami just as Mahito reaches him. Mahito touches Nanami. Nanami knows he is at the end. He sees Hebara in his mind. He thinks about what final words he should leave for Yuji. He does not want to curse Yuji with a burden, but he also wants to entrust something to him. Nanami dies in front of Yuji, killed by Mahito's idle transfiguration. This moment breaks something open inside Yuji. Mahito is not just another enemy. He is the curse who killed Junpei earlier, the curse who embodies cruelty toward the human soul. And now, he has killed Nanami right in front of Yuji. Mahito enjoys the pain he causes. He understands Yuji well enough to target his heart. For Mahito, the battle is philosophical and personal. He wants Yuji to accept that they are the same kind of being in opposite forms, both acting according to their nature. Yuji attacks Mahito with rage. Their fight is brutal. Yuji can damage Mahito because Yuji is aware of the shape of his own soul due to housing Sukuna. This makes him one of the few people who can truly hurt Mahito. But Mahito is constantly evolving. His understanding of his own soul and technique improves through battle. He creates body doubles, changes forms, and uses transfigured humans as weapons. Nobara Kujisaki enters another part of this conflict. She encounters Mahito's double. This double cannot use idle transfiguration the same way the original can, but it can still fight. Nobara's technique, resonance, becomes extremely important because it attacks through a connection. When she uses it on Mahito's double, the damage resonates back to the original Mahito's soul. This helps Yuji during his fight and proves Nobara is not just a side participant. Her technique can threaten Mahito in a way he did not expect. For a brief time, Yuji and Nobara's separate battles connect beautifully. Yuji realizes Nobara is nearby and fighting too. There is a sense of teamwork, even across distance. Mahito, however, adapts quickly. He switches places with his double, creating confusion. Nobara realizes too late that she is now facing the real Mahito. He touches her face. At that moment, the story pauses inside Nobara's mind. We see her childhood. We see the village she disliked, the narrowness of small-town life, and the people who mattered to her. We see Sayori, the older girl Nobara admired. We see Fumi, her childhood friend. We understand that Nobara came to Tokyo not only to become a sorcerer, but to live freely and stay true to herself. She did not want her life defined by the ugliness of her hometown or the expectations of others. She wanted a seat at the table of her own life, surrounded by the people she chose. In the present, Nobara understands that her condition may be fatal. She asks Yuji to tell everyone that her life was not so bad. Then the left side of her face bursts from Mahito's technique, and she falls. Yuji watches it happen. After Nanami, after Sukuna's massacre, after everything, Nobara's fall nearly destroys Yuji completely. He stops fighting properly. He is overwhelmed by guilt, grief, and horror. Mahito takes advantage and beats him down. This is what Mahito wanted. He wants to crush Yuji's soul, not just his body. He wants Yuji to admit that his ideals are meaningless in the face of suffering. Then Ai Todo arrives. Todo's entrance saves Yuji not just physically, but mentally. Todo is loud, strange, dramatic, and deeply loyal in his own way. He calls Yuji his brother, as he has done since the Kyoto Goodwill event. But beneath the comedy is genuine strength. Todo understands that Yuji is collapsing. He does not tell him that everything is fine. He does not erase the deaths. Instead, he reminds Yuji that as Jujutsu sorcerers, they must continue the will of those who have fallen. The dead have entrusted something to the living, and the living must keep moving. Arata Nida, who arrives with Todo, uses his technique to stop wounds from worsening. He cannot guarantee Nobara will survive, and he cannot heal her fully, but he gives a small possibility that her condition will not immediately get worse. He also treats Yuji enough for him to keep fighting. This is not comfort in a simple way. It is just enough hope to stand. Yuji rises again. Yuji and Todo fight Mahito together. This fight is one of the emotional and tactical peaks of Season 2. Todo's boogie-woogie technique allows him to swap the positions of people or objects with cursed energy when he claps. The technique sounds simple, but Todo uses it with incredible intelligence. He swaps himself, Yuji, Mahito, and other objects to create confusion and openings. Yuji brings raw close combat power and soul-damaging strikes. Together, they push Mahito harder than he has ever been pushed. Mahito, under pressure, continues evolving. He experiences the true essence of his soul and transforms into instant spirit body of distorted killing. This form is tougher, stronger, and more refined. It represents Mahito getting closer to his ideal self as a curse. He is not just playing anymore. He wants to kill Yuji and prove the truth of his existence. Todo loses one of his hands to Mahito's technique, which is devastating because boogie-woogie depends on clapping. But Todo still tricks Mahito by pretending the technique might continue. Even after losing the physical ability to use it normally, he creates one final opening through deception and timing. Yuji lands a decisive black flash. Mahito breaks. For the first time, Mahito is truly afraid. He runs from Yuji. The predator becomes prey. The imagery reverses their entire relationship. Mahito, who treated humans as toys and souls as clay, crawls away in terror while Yuji walks after him. Yuji accepts something dark and simple. He does not need to find a grand meaning in killing Mahito. He will kill him because that is his role. Again and again, if Mahito returns, Yuji will kill him. This is not heroic joy. It is a cold acceptance of duty. But Yuji does not get to finish him. The false Geto, the ancient brain controlling Geto's body, arrives. Mahito tries to reach him for help, but he is no longer useful as an ally. Kenjaku uses Geto's cursed spirit manipulation to absorb Mahito. This is the final insult to Mahito's existence. The curse who manipulated souls is turned into a resource. Kenjaku then uses Mahito's technique through a maximum technique connected to Geto's Uzumaki. This is where the true scale of the enemy plan becomes clearer. The Shibuya Incident was not only about sealing Gojo. That was the necessary first step. Kenjaku needed Gojo removed because Gojo would interfere with everything that comes next. Kenjaku has been preparing a much larger transformation of Japan's Jujutsu world. Mahito's idol transfiguration is key because it can awaken people whose brains were prepared for cursed techniques and strengthen people who consumed cursed objects but were not fully adapted. Kenjaku activates the technique remotely across Japan. Two kinds of people are affected. Some people who had cursed techniques engraved in their brains, but could not use them are altered so they can become sorcerers. Others who consumed cursed objects are altered into vessels. This begins the setup for a massive forced evolution of cursed energy society. Yuji, exhausted and injured, faces Kenjaku along with other surviving sorcerers. Choso also enters this part of the story in a changed state. Earlier in Shibuya, Choso fought Yuji in one of the most intense hand-to-hand battles of the season. Choso is one of the death painting wombs, incarnated cursed objects with blood manipulation. He believes Yuji killed his brothers Iso and Kechizu, which is true from season 1, though Yuji and Nobara killed them in battle without understanding the full family bond Choso felt. Choso fights Yuji with hatred and nearly kills him. But after the fight, Choso experiences a sudden false memory of Yuji as his brother at a family meal. This shocks him and causes him to leave rather than finish Yuji. Later, Choso confronts Kenjaku and begins to understand that the person using Geto's body is connected to the origin of the death paintings. Kenjaku once inhabited the body of Noritoshi Kamo, the most evil sorcerer in Kamo clan history, and experimented in ways that led to Choso and his brothers being born. This makes Choso see Yuji differently too. He concludes that Yuji is also his brother in some deeper sense, because Kenjaku is connected to Yuji's birth as well. Season 2 does not fully explain every detail, but it makes the emotional direction clear. Choso shifts from enemy to protector. Yuki Tsukumo arrives near the end of the Shibuya Incident. Her arrival matters because she is one of the few special grade sorcerers, and she has history with Geto from the past arc. She confronts Kenjaku ideologically and physically. But Kenjaku has already achieved much of what he wanted. Gojo is sealed. Mahito has been absorbed and used. The transformation has begun. The world is changing. The first half of Season 2 began with a girl being denied the chance to live freely. It showed Gojo and Geto failing to protect Riko, then separating over the meaning of that failure. The second half shows the consequences of that broken past. Geto's body becomes the tool used to seal Gojo. Gojo's emotional wound becomes the opening that traps him. The Jujutsu world loses its strongest shield. Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, Nanami, Maki, and the others are thrown into a disaster that none of them can fully control. By the end of the Shibuya Incident, the story has become something much darker than it was before. It is no longer only about students fighting curses in secret. The balance of the entire world has shifted. Gojo is gone. Many sorcerers are dead or badly injured. Sukuna has massacred civilians using Yuji's body. Nanami is dead. Nobara's fate is left uncertain. Mahito is dying from his injuries. Maki is burned. Toji loses an arm because of Sukuna's domain. The higher-ups will not treat Yuji as a protected student anymore. They will see him as a threat that must be executed. And above everything, Kenjaku walks away with the calm satisfaction of someone who has only opened the first door. That is the shape of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. It is the story of how the past becomes a curse. It is the story of how one failed mission creates wounds that never fully close. It is the story of how the strongest man is sealed not by greater strength, but by memory. It is the story of young sorcerers learning that courage does not protect them from loss. And it is the story of Yuji Itadori being forced to continue after watching his ideals crushed again and again. To understand Season 2 properly, we need to walk through it slowly, from the days when Gojo and Geto still laughed together, all the way to the night when Shibuya became a graveyard. So now, let us go back to the beginning of that summer, before Satoru Gojo became the teacher who smiled in front of his students. He was a second-year student at Tokyo Jujutsu High. His confidence was not an act. He truly believed in his own strength because the world had always confirmed it. Born into the Gojo clan with both the Limitless and the Six Eyes, he carried a combination of abilities so rare that his birth changed the balance of the Jujutsu world. The Limitless lets him manipulate space at an advanced level, and the Six Eyes allow him to perceive cursed energy with almost impossible precision. Even as a student, he is already treated like a once-in-a-generation existence. Suguru Geto is different. His power is not inherited in the same famous way, but it is still terrifying. Cursed spirit manipulation allows him to absorb cursed spirits after defeating them, then summon and control them. A weak curse becomes another tool. A strong curse becomes a weapon. The more curses Geto collects, the more dangerous he becomes. But the technique has a cost. He must consume the curses. The taste is vile, like swallowing something filthy that nobody else can understand. That physical disgust becomes symbolic later. because Geto is literally taking into himself the ugliness produced by human fear, hatred, and suffering. At this time, Geto still believes in a moral order. He tells Gojo that Jujutsu exists to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Gojo mocks that kind of righteous thinking, but he still listens to Geto in his own way. This is why their friendship works. Geto gives shape to Gojo's power. Gojo challenges Geto's seriousness. They tease each other, argue, and fight as partners. They are young enough to believe that being strong together means they can decide the outcome of anything. Their mission to protect Riko Amanai challenges that belief from the start. Riko has been chosen for the merger with Master Tenjin. Master Tenjin is central to Jujutsu society because Tenjin's barriers help conceal and protect important Jujutsu locations, including the schools. Tenjin's immortality does not freeze them as human forever. Without a merger, evolution may transform Tenjin into something beyond stable human consciousness. The star plasma vessel prevents that. In the language of the system, Riko is necessary. In the language of ordinary life, Riko is a girl being asked to die. At first, Riko herself seems to accept this. She speaks as if becoming one with Tenjin is natural. She acts proud of her role, but the story carefully shows the cracks. She cares about her school friends. She wants to spend time with Kyurei. She becomes angry and emotional when the people close to her are threatened. Her attachment to the world is obvious, even when she tries to deny it. The bounty placed on her life forces Gojo and Geto into constant protection mode. They fight off curse users who want the reward. But the real danger is Toji, who waits in the background. Toji understands that fighting Gojo at full alert is foolish, so he uses everyone else as part of his strategy. Every attacker keeps Gojo busy. Every hour of the mission drains his focus. Every moment of protecting Riko makes Gojo more likely to relax once he thinks the danger is over. This is what makes Toji such a brilliant enemy. He is not stronger than awakened Gojo, but he does not need to be. He fights the version of Gojo that exists before the awakening. He chooses the time, place, and conditions. He attacks when Gojo has been worn down, and when the group has reached the one place they believe should be safe. Riko's time in Okinawa is beautiful because it is temporary. Gojo, Geto, Riko, and Kyurei are not a family, but for a few days they resemble one. They travel together. They laugh. Riko is allowed to be more than the star plasma vessel. In a normal story, this would be the part where the protectors become more determined and successfully defy fate. Jujutsu Kaisen does something harsher. It lets Riko realize she wants to live, then kills her immediately after that realization. When Toji shoots Riko, he does not only kill one character. He kills Geto's belief that the system can be trusted. He kills the illusion that strength guarantees protection. He kills the idea that the mission's moral contradiction can be resolved cleanly. Geto's reaction is shock first, then rage. But Toji defeats him too. This is important because Geto is not weak. He is one of the strongest students of his era. Yet in that moment, he cannot protect Riko, cannot avenge Gojo, cannot defeat Toji, and cannot stop the body from being taken. Failure becomes total. Gojo's return changes the physical outcome, but not the emotional one. He kills Toji, But Riko is still dead. He retrieves the body, but he cannot return her life. He becomes stronger, but that strength arrives too late. This is the cruel foundation of Gojo's adult personality. He can become the strongest, but the world has already taught him that being the strongest does not mean saving everyone. Geto sees something different in the aftermath. The applause from the Time Vessel Association is unbearable. The people clapping are not curses. They are ordinary humans. They cannot use Jujutsu. They cannot fight Gojo or Geto, but their beliefs and hatred still produce cruelty. They can celebrate a child's death because they have turned her into an idea instead of a person. For Geto, this becomes evidence. At first, he resists the conclusion. He tells Gojo there is no point in killing them. But the image remains. After the mission, Gojo moves forward by becoming almost impossibly strong. Geto moves forward by sinking inward. The distance between them grows because their pain moves in opposite directions. Gojo's answer is mastery. Geto's answer becomes judgment. Hibara's death is the next wound. It shows Geto that Riko's death was not an exception. Young sorcerers are always being sacrificed. The system sends children and young adults into danger because someone has to do it. Curses keep appearing because ordinary humans keep leaking cursed energy. Sorcerers keep dying because they are the ones who can see and fight the things born from that leakage. The structure is endless. There is no final victory, only maintenance. Yuki Tsukumo's conversation gives Geto language for the thought he is afraid to fully speak. If curses come from ordinary humans, then ordinary humans are the source. If sorcerers do not create curses in the same way, then a world of sorcerers would be different. This is not a moral answer. It is a horrifying simplification. But to someone drowning in grief and disgust, it begins to sound like clarity. The village mission turns thought into action. Nanako and Mimiko are children like Riko in one sense, trapped by adults who define them as something inhuman. The villagers abuse them because they are afraid and ignorant. Geto looks at the cage, the bruises, the hatred, and decides that protecting these people is not justice. He decides that the weak are not innocent simply because they are weak. In his mind, ordinary humans have become the enemy. By killing the village, Geto crosses a boundary that cannot be uncrossed. By killing his parents, he proves that he is not simply acting from momentary rage. He has chosen an ideology. He will build a world for sorcerers by removing everyone else. When Gojo confronts him, the tragedy is quiet because both of them still know each other. Geto knows Gojo could kill him. Gojo knows Geto is serious. Neither can return to the time before Riko. Neither can speak the friendship back into existence. Geto leaves. Gojo lets him go. This failure haunts everything that follows. Years later, Geto is dead, but his body becomes the mask of another enemy. This is one of the cruelest turns in Season 2. Kenjaku uses Geto's face not only as a disguise, but as a weapon against Gojo. The prison realm trap works because Gojo loved Geto. Even though Gojo had accepted the responsibility of killing him, seeing that face again forces memory into the present. Kenjaku exploits grief as strategy. That is why hidden inventory and premature death are not separate from Shibuya. They are the key to Shibuya. Without Riko's death, Geto may not have fallen the same way. Without Geto's fall, Gojo may not carry the same wound. Without Geto's body, Kenjaku may not have had the perfect tool to freeze Gojo long enough for the prison realm. The past does not stay past. It returns wearing the face of a dead friend. When Shibuya begins, the viewer already understands the emotional trap before Gojo steps into it. The city is crowded because it is Halloween night. People are in costumes, walking through one of Tokyo's busiest areas, unaware that they are about to be used as pieces in a jujutsu operation. The curtain traps them, and the demand for Gojo pulls him in. The villains know exactly how society sees Gojo. If something is impossible, send Gojo. If civilians are trapped, send Gojo. If disaster curses appear, send Gojo. The entire jujutsu world has leaned on him for years. And now, that dependence becomes a weakness. Gojo enters the underground alone, and the curses fight him in the only way that gives them any chance. They do not try to defeat him cleanly. They surround him with civilians. They attack in bursts. They use domain amplification. They exploit his restraint. Nanami dies because even in those conditions, Gojo is still Gojo. But the curses do not need to win. They only need to create the conditions for Kenjaku's arrival. The 0.2 second unlimited void is one of Gojo's greatest feats, because it is not just about power. It is about control. A normal domain would be too much for civilians. Gojo compresses the effect into a tiny moment, and then physically eliminates the transfigured humans before the curses can recover. This should have been the turning point in his favor. Instead, the prison realm opens. Gojo sees Geto. The strongest sorcerer stops, and the world changes. From here, the Shibuya Incident becomes a story about what happens when the safety net is removed. Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, Nanami, Maki, Naobito, Mei to do, and others are all capable sorcerers. But none of them can replace Gojo. The disaster curses know this. Kenjaku knows this. The Jujutsu higher-ups know this too, and that knowledge will shape their response afterward. Yuji's role becomes especially painful. He begins the arc as a student trying to help rescue Gojo. By the end, he is the vessel through which Sukuna destroys a huge part of Shibuya. He does not choose it, but he cannot escape the fact that his body was involved. Yuji's entire moral center is built around giving people proper deaths and saving who he can. Shibuya forces him to witness improper deaths everywhere. Civilians die without knowing why. Nanami dies after giving everything. Nobara falls in front of him. Sukuna kills thousands in his body. Mahito laughs at human suffering. Every belief Yuji has is attacked. Megumi's role is also important. His fight with Toji is not understood by him in the moment, but the audience understands the weight. Toji's final choice means Megumi survives because he is Fushiguro, not Zenin. Later, Megumi's summoning of Mahoraga shows both his potential and his self-destructive habit. He is willing to throw his own life away to win, or at least force a draw. Sukuna's interest in him prevents that death, but not out of kindness. Sukuna saves Megumi because he has plans or desires connected to Megumi's technique. Nobara's role gives the arc one of its sharpest emotional wounds. Her fight against Mahito proves her courage and compatibility as a threat to him. She is not removed because she is useless. She is removed after proving she matters. Her memories show that she lived according to her own stubborn sense of self. Her final message to Yuji is not a grand speech. It is simple, human, and devastating. She wants everyone to know her life was not bad. Nanami's death is the adult tragedy of Shibuya. He is tired, burned, and already imagining a different life. Yet, he keeps moving because that is what he believes an adult should do for the younger sorcerers. His final presence pushes Yuji forward even as it wounds him. Nanami does not defeat Mahito. He cannot. But his life and death become part of the burden Yuji carries. Todu's arrival is the answer to despair, but not a cure for it. Todo cannot bring Nanami back. He cannot confirm Nobara is safe. He cannot undo Sukuna's massacre. What he can do is keep Yuji from drowning in guilt long enough to fight. In Jujutsu Kaisen, that often matters more than comfort. Survival is sometimes the only form of hope available. Mahito's defeat is satisfying because he finally feels fear, but it is also incomplete because Yuji does not get to kill him. Kenjaku absorbs him, turning Mahito's growth into fuel for a larger plan. This is one of the bleakest ideas in the season. Even the personal enemy, the curse Yuji most needs to defeat, becomes only one piece in someone else's strategy. Kenjaku is not emotionally invested in Mahito's pride. He uses him when the time is right. By the end of Shibuya, the season has transformed the entire story. The school structure no longer feels safe. The adult authorities are exposed as fearful and political. The villains have moved from isolated attacks to national-scale transformation. The students are traumatized. The strongest is gone. The age of relying on Gojo has ended. Now, to tell the events in full order, we begin with the first episode of Season 2's past arc. The season opens not with Yuji, but with Yutaheim Aori and Mei on a mission in 2006. They investigate a haunted mansion-like location where the space behaves strangely. Corridors loop, rooms shift. The two sorcerers search carefully, showing that even trained Jujutsu users can be caught in strange, cursed environments. Yutaheim is serious and cautious, while Mei is calm and money-minded. The mission builds tension, but it also becomes a way to introduce young Gojo and Geto. Gojo and Geto arrive and solve the problem with ease, annoying Yutaheim because Gojo is disrespectful and smug. This opening shows the dynamic of the era. Gojo is powerful and irritating. Geto is polite enough to smooth things over, but he is also fully aware of their superiority. The two of them walk through danger like it is routine. Their confidence is charming at first because they are young and strong. Later, that same confidence will feel tragic because we know it is about to be shattered. After the mission, the focus shifts to Jujutsu High. Gojo and Geto argue about the role of sorcerers. Geto says that Jujutsu exists to protect non-sorcerers. Gojo dislikes moral lectures and calls that kind of reasoning tiring. Their disagreement is not hatred. It is a philosophical difference inside a friendship. Geto still sees strength as responsibility. Gojo sees strength as identity and freedom. Neither has yet experienced the specific failure that will harden them. Yaga interrupts and disciplines them. He gives them the mission concerning the star plasma vessel. must escort Riko Amanai and ensure she reaches Master Tenjin safely for the merger. The mission has urgency because the merger date is approaching. If the merger fails, Tenjin may evolve beyond a stable human form. The consequences could threaten the barriers that support Jujutsu society. The mission immediately places Gojo and Geto between the individual and the system. Riko must be protected, but protected for what purpose? To keep her alive until she disappears into Tenjin. At this point, Gojo and Geto do not fully confront the moral horror of that. It is a mission. They are sorcerers. Sorcerers do what the system requires. When they find Riko, an attack has already begun. The curse users hunting her are not strong enough to defeat Gojo and Geto, but they prove that the bounty is active and the danger is real. Riko's personality appears quickly. She is dramatic, proud, and determined to present herself as special. She insists that merging with Tenjin is not death in the normal sense. She tries to sound above ordinary fear, but her behavior also reveals her youth. She gets annoyed. She reacts emotionally. She cares about Kura. Kura is Riko's caretaker, but emotionally she is much more. She raised and protected Riko after Riko's family situation left her alone. Kura loves Riko, and Riko loves Kura. Their bond is one of the reasons Riko cannot be reduced to a vessel. She is someone's child in all but name. She is someone's precious person. The group must let Riko continue attending school for a while because Riko insists on it. This choice seems reckless, but it matters to her. School represents the ordinary life she is about to lose. Her classmates do not understand the truth. They just see Riko as their friend. Gojo and Geto guard her while trying not to disrupt everything completely. The contrast is painful. In the middle of classrooms, uniforms, and teenage friendships, assassins are approaching because a hidden world has already decided Riko's fate. Toji watches from a distance. He is introduced through gambling, casual conversation, and quiet confidence. He is not presented as a screaming villain. He is relaxed because he understands his own ability. He knows sorcerers rely heavily on sensing cursed energy, and he knows his lack of cursed energy makes him a blind spot. He also knows that Gojo, because of the 6 eyes, is not easy to surprise. That is why he does not rush. The bounty period becomes a clock. Gojo and Geto must keep Riko alive until the merger. Toji uses that clock against them. He lets the pressure build. This tactic shows that he is not merely physically strong. He understands how to make stronger enemies tired. When Kura is kidnapped, Riko panics. The kidnappers intend to use Kura as leverage. Gojo and Geto rescue her, but Gojo makes the unexpected choice to extend their stay in Okinawa. The practical reason is that the rescue is complete and they can control the environment. The emotional reason is that Riko deserves more time. Gojo may act careless, but he understands that once Riko reaches Tenjin, her individual life ends. So he gives her a final vacation. The Okinawa scenes are quiet and bright. They are filled with sunlight, water, and brief peace. But the peace is fragile because the viewer knows the mission has not ended. Gojo stays awake and keeps watch for a long time. His technique and attention protect everyone, but they also exhaust him. This is exactly what Toji wants. When the group returns to Tokyo, Gojo believes the worst is over. He has protected Riko through the bounty window. They are back inside Jujutsu High's barrier. He relaxes for a moment. Toji strikes in that moment. The stabbing of Gojo is shocking, because until now Gojo has felt untouchable. Toji's blade reaches him because Toji has no cursed energy for Gojo to detect in the usual way, and because the timing is perfect. Gojo quickly realizes the enemy is dangerous and tells Geto to take Riko onward. This split creates two simultaneous tragedies. Gojo is fighting the man who can bypass his infinity. Geto is walking Riko toward a fate she may not want. Gojo and Toji's first fight is tactical and brutal. Toji uses cursed tools from the storage curse wrapped around him. The inverted spear of heaven cancels techniques, making it the perfect answer to infinity. Toji also uses distractions and weapons that force Gojo to process multiple threats. Gojo uses blue and his physical skill, but he is tired and not yet fully awakened. Toji wears him down, cuts through his defenses, and leaves him apparently dead. Inside the tombs of the Star Corridor, Geto gives Riko the choice that the system denied her. He says that if she wants to go home, he and Gojo will protect her. Riko realizes she does want to live. She wants to be with Kuroi. She wants to see her friends. She wants more time. Her tears are not weakness. They are the truth, finally escaping the role forced onto her. Then Toji kills her. The suddenness matters. There is no long goodbye. No heroic last stand. Riko does not die after accepting the merger. She dies after rejecting it, after choosing life. That is why the scene hurts so much. Geto fights Toji and loses. Toji explains pieces of his advantage with cruel calm. He knows Geto's technique cannot easily absorb his storage curse because of the relationship between them. He defeats Geto without killing him. This choice is practical rather than merciful. Killing a cursed spirit manipulation user may release the curses he holds, and Toji does not want unnecessary complications. Toji delivers Riko's body to the Time Vessel Association. The group celebrates. Their applause becomes a sound that echoes through Geto's future. Gojo awakens after experiencing near death. Reverse cursed technique saves him. His understanding of cursed energy expands. He is no longer the same person Toji defeated. When he confronts Toji again, the fight is one-sided in the opposite direction. Gojo uses red and then hollow purple. Toji is killed. His final mention of Megumi creates a thread that will reach into the present story. Gojo returns to the Time Vessel Association with Riko's body. He is calm in a way that feels dangerous. He asks Geto whether they should kill the people applauding. Geto says no, because there is no point. At that time, Geto still believes meaning matters. Gojo accepts it. They leave with the body. The mission is over, but nobody is saved. Master Tenjin survives without merging with Riko because another star plasma vessel, or another outcome, is implied by the system's complexity. But the emotional truth is that Riko is gone and the boys failed. Gojo becomes stronger. Geto becomes haunted. The world moves on because the Jujutsu world always moves on. The next part of the season shows that moving on is not the same as healing. Gojo's growth separates him from Geto. He can now handle missions alone. He is perfecting his automatic infinity. He is becoming a person who no longer needs a partner in battle. For Gojo, this is progress. For Geto, it means isolation. Their title as the strongest pair fades into Gojo being the strongest by himself. Geto's work continues. He exorcises curses. He absorbs them. He swallows their disgusting taste. He listens to people complain. He sees sorcerers die. He hears ordinary humans produce the curses that sorcerers must fight. The more he thinks, the more the old moral formula collapses. Protect the weak. But what if the weak are cruel? Protect non-sorcerers. But what if non-sorcerers are the source of curses? Use strength for others. But why must sorcerers die? For people who will never understand them. Hebara's death intensifies this. Hebara had innocence and optimism. His death feels like the system eating one more good person. Nanami's bitterness after this connects directly to his adult personality. He learns early that jujutsu work is not noble in the way children might imagine. It is unfair labor inside a broken machine. Yuki Tsukumo gives Geto a dangerous mirror. She talks about the root cause of curses and the possibility of changing humanity's relationship with cursed energy. The discussion is theoretical, but Geto hears the possibility that ordinary humans are the problem. Yuki does not command him to commit evil. She simply speaks freely to someone already standing near a cliff. The village pushes him over. Nanako and Mimiko are living proof that ordinary humans can become monsters through fear. They abuse 2 children because those children can see what they cannot. Geto looks at the cage and decides the world is upside down. The ones with cursed energy control are treated as threats by those who create curses unconsciously. To him, this is intolerable. He kills the villagers and saves the girls. After that, he kills his parents too. This is the line that shows he has fully chosen his new path. He is not acting only from compassion for Nanako and Mimiko. He is applying an ideology. Ordinary humans must be removed. Sorcerers must inherit the world. Gojo cannot stop him with words. When they meet, Geto explains his goal. Gojo calls it impossible, but Geto replies in a way that cuts deeply. For Gojo, what seems impossible for Geto might be possible for Gojo. This exposes the lonely absurdity of Gojo's strength. He has enough power to make impossible things seem reachable, but he cannot give his worldview to Geto. He cannot force Geto back into who he was. Geto leaves. Gojo lets him. Their friendship becomes a wound that never fully closes. In the present, that wound is weaponized. Before the main Shibuya Incident, Kikichi Muta's story shows how badly people can be twisted by the desire for a normal life. Kikichi's body is trapped in pain and limitation, but his cursed energy range is huge. Through Mekamaru puppets, he interacts with classmates, fights, and participates in school life from a distance. But he wants to stand in front of them with his real body. He especially wants to see Miwa. His betrayal is wrong, but it is understandable. He made a deal with enemies because Mahito's technique could reshape his body. The binding vow is fulfilled. Mahito heals Kikichi. For the first time, Kikichi has the body he longed for. but he knows the enemies will kill him if he cannot escape. He prepared for this. His giant puppet, Ultimate Mechamaru, contains stored cursed energy and weapons designed for this exact fight. Kikichi battles Mahito with everything he has. Mahito is still one of the most horrifying enemies because his technique attacks the soul. He does not simply kill people. He changes the shape of their existence. Kikichi's attacks, using simple domain capsules, can hurt Mahito because they affect the soul through domain principles. This gives Kikichi a real chance. The fight becomes a desperate attempt to survive long enough to warn Gojo. But Mahito wins. Kikichi dies before he can reach the future he wanted. His backup devices remain, and through them, he still helps the others during Shibuya. This makes Kikichi's death tragic rather than meaningless. He failed to live, but he did not fail completely. Halloween night arrives with ordinary people unaware of what is being built around them. Curtains descend. Civilians are trapped. Communications become difficult. Sorcerers gather outside. Teams are formed. The demand for Gojo spreads from inside the barrier. Gojo understands that he is being called into a trap, but he goes anyway because civilians are inside. This is the burden of being the strongest. Everyone expects him to solve the unsolvable, and he usually can. That expectation makes him predictable. Under Shibuya, the disaster curses execute their plan. Jogo, Nanami, and Choso confront him directly. Mahito contributes transformed humans later. The enemies use the crowd as a living restraint. Gojo cannot unleash everything. Nanami and Jogo use domain amplification to touch him through infinity. But touching Gojo and defeating Gojo are very different things. He remains faster, smarter, and more lethal. Nanami dies because Gojo creates an opening and crushes the curse despite the plan. The transfigured humans force Gojo into his most delicate action. Unlimited void for 0.2 seconds stuns everyone, and Gojo kills the transformed humans rapidly. The civilians survive the domain, though many are traumatized and injured. The curses are stunned too. For a moment, it seems Gojo has overcome the trap. Then Kenjaku appears with Geto's face. The prison realm opens. Gojo's body is captured because his mind is caught by the impossible sight of Suguru Geto alive. The ancient curse user controlling the corpse reveals the brain inside. Gojo understands that his friend's body has been stolen. He is sealed before he can act. The sealing of Gojo is not only a tactical victory, it is a symbolic collapse. The person treated as the answer to every problem is removed. Everyone else must now confront the cost of depending on one man. Yuji receives the news through Mechamaru's device and runs to announce it. His voice carries through Shibuya. Gojo has been sealed. Those words become the alarm bell of the arc. From this point onward, the story fragments into multiple battles. Yuji and Megumi help break barriers. Ino is injured by the revived Toji's body. Owasaka is defeated through strategy. Mei defeats the smallpox curse. Nanami's team moves deeper. Dagon evolves. Toji returns. Jogo burns the survivors. Sukuna awakens. Every event pushes the knight further from rescue and closer to catastrophe. Dagon's Dagon's fight is one of the first major signs that without Gojo, even experienced sorcerers can be overwhelmed. Nanami, Maki, and Nobara are all capable, but Dagon's domain changes the battlefield completely. Guaranteed hits from endless Shikigami tear into them. Megumi's arrival saves them temporarily by opening his own incomplete domain to create an escape route. Then Toji enters and kills Dagon, proving once again that he is an impossible physical anomaly. Toji's confrontation with Megumi is short, but loaded with meaning. Megumi does not know him. Toji barely knows himself in that state. Yet the question of Megumi's name brings back enough awareness for Toji to choose not to destroy his son. He dies by his own hand, leaving Megumi alive and confused. Jogo's arrival after Dagon's death turns victory into disaster. He burns Nanami, Maki, and Nobara. The injuries are severe. Then he feeds Yuji many Sukuna fingers, awakening the king of curses. Sukuna's presence is not rescue. It is a disaster replacing a disaster. He kills Mimiko and Nanako when they try to demand that he kill Kenjaku in exchange for feeding him fingers. Their attachment to Geto makes their request emotional, but Sukuna does not care. They try to bargain with something they cannot control, and they die for it. Jogo challenges Sukuna and is destroyed. Sukuna acknowledges his strength, giving Jogo a strange final piece. But Sukuna then turns to Megumi's situation because Megumi has summoned Mahoraga. Sukuna saves Megumi only because Megumi matters to his own interests. The fight against Mahoraga leads to Malevolent Shrine devastating Shibuya. When Yuji returns, the guilt nearly crushes him. This is where part 1 ends, with Yuji standing in the ruins of Sukuna's violence, carrying a guilt that is not fully his fault, but still belongs to his body. The next part continues with Nanami's final walk, Mahito's cruelty, Nobara's battle and fall, to do saving Yuji from despair, the final fight against Mahito, Kenjaku's reveal, Yuki's arrival, and the broken aftermath of Shibuya. Yuji Itadori wakes up in a city that his own body helped destroy. For a few moments, he cannot understand what he is seeing. Shibuya is not only damaged, it has been carved open. Buildings are sliced apart. Streets are erased. Human lives have disappeared inside the range of Sukuna's malevolent shrine. Yuji was not conscious when it happened, but he remembers enough to know the truth. Sukuna used him. Sukuna took control of his body and turned Shibuya into a slaughter ground. Yuji has always believed that people should have proper deaths. That belief is not a complicated philosophy. It comes from his grandfather. It comes from the simple idea that a human life should not end alone, confused, or meaningless. But Shibuya throws that belief back at him in the cruelest way possible. The people who died in Sukuna's domain did not know Yuji. They did not know Sukuna. They did not understand cursed energy, cursed spirits, sorcerers, or the hidden war happening around them. They were just people trapped in the wrong place on Halloween night. Yuji looks at the destruction and breaks. He vomits. He trembles. He hates himself. He knows that Sukuna is the one who chose the massacre, but he cannot separate the guilt from his own body. His hands are the hands Sukuna used. His face is the face people would have seen if they saw anything at all. This is one of the deepest horrors of being Sukuna's vessel. Yuji does not only carry a monster inside him, he must live after the monster acts. For a moment, Yuji wants everything to end. He thinks that he should die. He thinks that maybe his existence is too dangerous. This is not the first time that thought has appeared in the story, but Shibuya makes it feel unavoidable. How can he keep living when so many people died because Sukuna was inside him? But the incident is still happening. People are still fighting. People are still dying. Gojo is still sealed. Mahito is still loose. Kenjaku is still moving. Yuji cannot collapse forever because stopping would only allow more deaths. So he forces himself up. This is not a heroic recovery filled with confidence. It is painful movement. It is a boy dragging himself forward because the alternative is worse. At the same time, Nanami Kento is still walking. Nanami has already been burned badly by Jogo. His body is ruined. Half of him looks like it should no longer be standing. But Nanami continues through the station, killing transfigured humans as he moves. His mind drifts away from Shibuya. He thinks of Malaysia. He imagines a beach, sunlight, and peace. He imagines reading books he never had time to read. He imagines a life outside Jujutsu society, away from curses, away from the endless responsibility of protecting people who will never know his name. This dream matters because Nanami once tried to leave. After Hebara died in his youth, Nanami lost much of his faith in Jujutsu work. He left and became a salaryman. But the ordinary corporate world was also empty in its own way. He realized that even if the job of a sorcerer was terrible, there were people he could help directly. So he returned, not because he enjoyed being a sorcerer, not because he believed the system was fair. He returned because he knew children like Yuji should not be forced to carry everything alone. That is who Nanami is. He is tired, practical, sometimes blunt, and deeply protective. He tries to be the adult in a world that keeps sacrificing children. As he walks through Shibuya, he is already close to death. But he keeps moving because there are still enemies in front of him. His body is failing, but his duty has not ended in his mind. Then Mahito appears. Mahito is almost the perfect opposite of Nanami. Nanami respects life because he understands how fragile it is. Mahito treats life as material. His cursed technique, idle transfiguration, allows him to touch the soul and reshape the body according to that soul's altered form. To Mahito, humans are not sacred. They are toys, experiments, tools. He laughs because he sees no reason not to laugh. Nanami knows what Mahito can do. He knows that if Mahito touches him properly, there is no real escape. Yuji arrives and sees Nanami at the worst possible moment. Nanami looks toward him. He thinks about what to say. He understands the danger of final words. A dying adult can curse a child without meaning to. A final command can become a burden that ruins a life. Nanami does not want to trap Yuji with guilt, but he also cannot leave him with nothing. So Nanami entrusts the rest to him. Mahito kills Nanami in front of Yuji. Nanami's body is destroyed by idle transfiguration. There is no clean goodbye. There is no time for Yuji to save him. Nanami is there, and then he is gone. For Yuji, This is another strike directly against the heart. Nanami was his mentor, his adult example, and one of the people who treated him not as Sukuna's vessel, but as a young sorcerer trying his best. Mahito enjoys it. This is what makes Mahito so personally unbearable to Yuji. Other enemies may kill because of ideology, hunger, loyalty, or ambition. Mahito kills because the act expresses what he is. He is a curse born from humanity's hatred and fear of other humans. His cruelty is intimate. He does not only want bodies broken. He wants souls bent until the person watching loses faith in being human. Yuji attacks him with rage. The fight between Yuji and Mahito is not only physical. It is the continuation of an argument that began long before Shibuya. Mahito believes the soul defines the body. He believes he is simply acting according to his nature as a curse. He does not feel guilty for killing humans, just as humans do not feel guilty for exorcising curses. He wants Yuji to accept that they are the same kind of being on opposite sides, both killing because their nature demands it. Yuji rejects him, but rejection does not make the pain easier. Yuji is one of the few people who can truly hurt Mahito. Because Yuji shares his body with Sukuna, he has awareness of the soul's shape. His punches can reach Mahito's soul directly. This is why Mahito cannot simply ignore Yuji's attacks the way he ignores normal damage. Even so, Mahito is dangerous. He changes his body constantly. He creates blades, armor, extra limbs, and distorted forms. He sends transfigured humans into the fight to distract and wound Yuji emotionally. Mahito's tactic is always layered. Every transfigured human is both a weapon and a reminder. These were people. They had lives. Now they are forced to attack, suffer, and die. Yuji cannot afford to hesitate, but every strike against them adds to the horror. While Yuji fights the real Mahito, Nobara Kujisaki enters another part of the battle. Nobara had been told earlier that she should leave Shibuya because the danger was beyond what many younger sorcerers could handle. But Nobara is not someone who accepts being dismissed easily. Her pride is not empty. It comes from her refusal to let others define her place. She came to Tokyo to live according to her own values. She became a Jujutsu sorcerer because she wanted a life that belonged to her. So even in Shibuya, she keeps moving forward. Nobara encounters what appears to be Mahito, but this is one of Mahito's doubles. The double is dangerous, but it cannot use idle transfiguration in the same deadly way as the original. Nobara does not know every detail at first, but she quickly senses that something is different. She fights carefully, using nails, hammer strikes, and her straw doll technique. Nobara's technique is one of the most interesting counters to Mahito because it does not depend only on striking the body in front of her. Resonance allows her to attack through a connection. When she uses it properly, damage can travel through the target's linked essence. Against Mahito's double, this becomes a serious problem for the real Mahito. Nobara's attack resonates back to the original soul. Yuji feels the effect during his fight. Mahito is hurt from a direction he did not expect. Yuji realizes Nobara is nearby and fighting too. For a brief moment, the darkness of Shibuya opens into something like teamwork. Yuji is not alone. Nobara is there. She is not being protected in the background. She is actively damaging one of the most dangerous curses in the city. This is why what happens next hurts so much. Mahito understands the danger and changes tactics. The real Mahito and the double move in a way that causes confusion. Nobara believes she is still facing the double, but the real Mahito reaches her. Yuji sees the danger and shouts for her to run, but the warning comes too late. Mahito touches Nobara's face. The story then turns inward, into Nobara's memories. We see her as a child in the countryside. Nobara hated the narrowness of her village. She disliked how people judged, whispered, and pushed others into small roles. She wanted something bigger and freer. In that village, she met Fumi, a girl who became her friend, and Sayori, an older girl Nobara admired deeply. Sayori represented the kind of person Nobara wanted to know. Stylish, kind, different from the suffocating world around them. But Sayori was eventually pushed away by the village's judgment, too. For Nobara, leaving for Tokyo was not simply ambition. It was escape. It was self-declaration. She wanted to choose the people in her life. She wanted a seat at the table with people she respected. That is why her friendship with Yuji and Megumi matters. She acts tough, proud, and sometimes harsh, but she has made room for them in her life. She values them. As Nobara stands before Yuji in Shibuya, she understands that she may be about to die. She does not give him a long speech. She does not beg. She does not suddenly become someone softer than she is. She simply tells him to let everyone know that her life was not so bad. Then idle transfiguration takes effect. The left side of Nobara's face ruptures, and she falls. Yuji sees it happen right after Nanami's death, right after Sukuna's destruction, right after everything else that has already torn him apart. This is too much. His mind cannot keep standing. His body remains there, but his will collapses. Mahito has been waiting for this kind of moment. He wanted to break Yuji, and now he sees the opening. Mahito beats him down. Yuji cannot defend himself properly. His eyes are empty. The guilt, grief, and horror have crushed him into stillness. Mahito tells him through action and presence that this is the truth of their world. People die. Ideals fail. Curses follow their nature. Humans suffer. Yuji's desire to save people becomes another thing Mahito can laugh at. Then To-Do arrives. AI To-Do enters the battlefield like a force of absurd confidence. But underneath, his loud personality is something deeply important. To-Do is not there to make the tragedy disappear. He cannot revive Nanami. He cannot undo Nobara's injury. He cannot erase Sukuna's massacre. What he can do is stop Yuji from sinking so deeply that he never rises again. To-Do calls Yuji his brother. That bond began in the previous season through To-Do's strange and immediate attachment to Yuji, based partly on Yuji's answer to To-Do's question about his type of woman. But by Shibuya, the comedy has become something sincere. To-Do truly believes in Yuji. More than that, he understands the mental state of a sorcerer in battle. He knows that grief can kill as surely as any curse if it freezes the body at the wrong time. Arata Nitta is with To-Do. Arata's technique cannot heal in the normal sense, but it can prevent existing injuries from worsening. He treats Yuji and also attends to Nobara. He cannot promise that Nobara will live. He cannot say she is safe. But he says her chance is not zero. That tiny possibility is enough to keep total despair from closing over Yuji completely. Todo speaks to Yuji not with gentle comfort, but with the harsh encouragement of someone who understands their role. Sorcerers inherit the will of those who fall. As long as they live, they must keep moving. To stop here would be to abandon the people who entrusted something to them. This is not a healthy burden in an ordinary sense, but in Shibuya, it is the only path forward. Yuji stands again. Now the fight becomes Yuji and Todo against Mahito. This battle is one of the greatest combinations of physical combat, technique, and emotional release in the season. Todo's technique, Boogie Woogie, allows him to swap places with another person or object that has cursed energy when he claps. The technique is simple to explain, but in Todo's hands, it becomes extremely difficult to predict. He swaps himself with Yuji. He swaps Yuji with Mahito. He swaps positions to avoid attacks, create openings, and confuse the enemy's sense of timing. Yuji, meanwhile, fights with everything he has left. His punches can damage Mahito's soul. His close combat is direct, heavy, and relentless. Todo's swaps turn Yuji into an even greater threat because Mahito cannot easily predict where the next strike will come from. The rhythm of the fight becomes almost musical. Clap, swap, punch, feint, counter, repeat. Mahito is pressured harder than ever before, but Mahito is also growing. Curses evolve through fear, battle, and self-understanding. Mahito has always been fascinated by the soul, and through this fight, he pushes closer to the true shape of his own. He lands Black Flash, deepening his understanding of cursed energy. Yuji also lands Black Flash. The battle becomes a contest of beings reaching their limits. Mahito attempts to neutralize Todo, because Todo's technique is making the fight impossible to control. He manages to touch Todo's hand, forcing Todo to cut it off before idle transfiguration spreads. Later, Mahito damages Todo further, taking away the normal use of Boogie Woogie. This is devastating because Todo's clapping is the trigger for the technique. Without a hand, the technique should be gone. But Todo's strength is not only his cursed technique. It is his intelligence, confidence, and ability to manipulate an opponent's expectations. Even after losing the technique's normal function, he pretends there may still be a way to activate it. Mahito reacts to the possibility, and that reaction creates a final opening. Yuji lands a decisive Black Flash. Mahito is pushed beyond his comfort. He transforms into his instant spirit body of distorted killing, a hardened and evolved form that represents his soul's ideal combat shape. This form is stronger and more durable than before. It shows that Mahito is not a static villain. He is learning and becoming more dangerous in real time. But Yuji continues. The fight reaches its emotional conclusion when Mahito's confidence finally breaks. The curse who laughed at suffering, who shaped humans like toys, who treated Yuji's grief as entertainment, becomes afraid. He runs. Yuji follows. The image changes completely. Mahito becomes like prey fleeing through snow, while Yuji becomes the hunter. Yuji no longer argues with Mahito. He no longer tries to prove that his ideals are pure. He accepts a colder truth. Mahito is a curse, Yuji is a Jujutsu sorcerer. If Mahito appears, Yuji will kill him. Again and again. That is his role. This acceptance is not victory in a happy sense. Yuji is not healed. He is not triumphant. He is simply still moving, carrying grief as fuel. Mahito crawls toward the figure, wearing Geto's body. For a moment, Mahito thinks he has found salvation. He reaches for help, but Kenjaku does not see him as a friend worth saving. Mahito has reached the stage Kenjaku needed. His technique has matured. His usefulness as an independent ally is over. Kenjaku absorbs Mahito, using Geto's cursed spirit manipulation. This is a perfect reversal of Mahito's own cruelty. Mahito spent his existence turning humans into tools. Now he is turned into a tool himself. The curse who manipulated souls becomes raw material for another person's plan. Yuji is denied the final blow, but Mahito's end is still humiliating and fitting. Kenjaku then uses maximum Uzumaki. To understand this moment, we need to understand Geto's technique more clearly. Cursed spirit manipulation allows the user to absorb curses and use them. But maximum Uzumaki compresses cursed spirits into a powerful attack. In Geto's original use, it was a way to combine many curses into one blast of cursed energy. Kenjaku reveals an additional value. When a cursed spirit of high enough grade with a cursed technique is extracted through this process, the technique can be used. By absorbing Mahito, Kenjaku gains access to idol transfiguration at the exact moment he needs it. This reveals that Mahito's growth was part of the larger plan. Kenjaku's goal is not simply to cause chaos in Shibuya. The chaos is a door. The sealing of Gojo is the key. With Gojo present, Kenjaku's next steps would be impossible. With Gojo sealed, the Jujutsu world loses its greatest obstacle. Kenjaku can now activate a transformation that has been prepared across Japan. Using idol transfiguration remotely, Kenjaku alters two types of people. The first type are people whose brains were meant to have cursed techniques, but who had not awakened them. Their brains are adjusted so the techniques can activate. The second type are people who had consumed cursed objects, but were not yet strong enough to serve as vessels. Their bodies are altered so they can withstand incarnation. In simple terms, Kenjaku forces many new players into the world of Jujutsu. Some become newly awakened sorcerers. Others become vessels for ancient curse users or cursed beings. This is the beginning of a much larger conflict after Shibuya. Season 2 does not fully enter that next stage, but it makes clear that the world has changed. Yuji does not understand every detail yet, but he understands enough to know Kenjaku must be stopped. Other characters converge near the end. Kyoto students and teachers arrive. Noritoshi Kamo, Momo Nishimiya, Maizenin, Kasumi Miwa, and others try to help from their side. They are brave, but Kenjaku is operating on a level beyond most of them. Yuram, an ally connected to Sukuna, also appears and uses ice techniques to immobilize many sorcerers. The battlefield becomes frozen, literally and emotionally. Everyone is exhausted, injured, and outmatched. Choso's role becomes one of the most surprising shifts in the arc. Earlier in the Shibuya Incident, Choso fought Yuji with the intent to avenge his brothers, Iso and Kechizu. Choso is one of the death painting wombs, incarnated beings born from a horrifying mixture of human and curse-related experimentation. To Choso, Iso and Kechizu were not monsters. They were his younger brothers. Yuji and Nobara killed them in battle during the previous season, and Choso carries that grief. His fight with Yuji is intense and tactical. Choso uses blood manipulation, the inherited technique of the Kamo clan. He can control blood outside his body, compress it, fire it, shape it, and use it in close combat. Piercing blood is especially dangerous because compressed blood is fired at extreme speed. Yuji struggles badly against him. The fight moves into a bathroom area where water affects Choso's blood control, giving Yuji a chance. Even so, Choso wins and is about to kill Yuji. Then something impossible happens. Choso experiences a memory that should not exist. He sees Yuji sitting with him and his brothers, as if Yuji were also part of their family. The memory is sudden, warm, and completely inconsistent with what Choso believes. It shocks him so deeply that he cannot finish Yuji. He leaves in confusion. Later, Choso begins to understand the truth through Kenjaku's presence. Kenjaku once possessed the body of Noritoshi Kamo, the infamous ancestor tied to the creation of the death painting wombs. That makes Kenjaku, in a twisted sense, connected to Choso's birth and the birth of his brothers. Choso also concludes that Yuji is his brother because Kenjaku had a role in Yuji's origin too. Season 2 does not explain every hidden detail, but Choso's emotional conclusion is clear. Yuji is family. Kenjaku is the parent, like monster, behind their suffering. So Choso turns against Kenjaku. This is not a small change. Choso began Shibuya as an enemy. He ends it trying to protect Yuji. His bond is strange, sudden, and built on supernatural realization. But his feelings are real. Choso's identity is centered on being an older brother. Once he accepts Yuji as a younger brother, his loyalty becomes fierce. Choso attacks Kenjaku, calling out the connection to Noritoshi Kamo. Kenjaku remains calm. He does not react like someone exposed in panic. He has lived through too many bodies and too many years for that. The reveal does matter, though, because it shows the enemy is not simply someone who stole Geto's corpse recently. Kenjaku is ancient. He has been moving through history, possessing bodies, experimenting, and preparing outcomes across generations. This makes the Shibuya Incident feel even larger. The disaster is not only the result of a few curses planning revenge. It is the result of centuries of manipulation. The Kyoto students try to attack Kenjaku. Miwa, filled with emotion and desperation, uses a binding vow to put everything into one sword strike. She gives up her future ability to swing a katana in exchange for the strongest attack she can make in that moment. It still fails. Kenjaku stops it effortlessly. This is heartbreaking because Miwa's effort is sincere, but sincerity is not enough against someone like him. Kenjaku then uses Uzumaki in a way that nearly kills. Kusakabe and others intervene to protect the students. The gap in power is obvious. Everyone is trying to stop the end of the incident, but Kenjaku has already achieved the main objectives. Then Yuki Tsukumo arrives. Yuki's arrival connects the end of Shibuya back to the beginning of Season 2. She was the one who once spoke with Geto about the root cause of curses. Her ideas helped shape the framework that Geto twisted into mass murder. Now, she stands before the being wearing Geto's body. The past and present meet again. Yuki is a special grade sorcerer, which means her strength is enormous, though Season 2 does not fully display everything she can do. Her presence is enough to change the atmosphere. She speaks with Kenjaku about the future of humanity and cursed energy. Their disagreement is ideological. Yuki is interested in breaking away from cursed energy. Kenjaku is interested in optimizing it, expanding its possibilities, and pushing humanity into forced evolution through chaos. Kenjaku explains enough to show that the next stage is already beginning. The people he marked have awakened. The vessels are prepared. The world is moving toward a new era of cursed energy. He does not need to stay and defeat every sorcerer there. He only needs to leave with the plan already activated. Yuram helps Kenjaku withdraw. The remaining sorcerers are left injured, frozen, exhausted, and unable to stop him. The prison realm containing Gojo remains with Kenjaku's side. Gojo is not rescued. That fact alone makes the end feel like a defeat, even though some characters survive. The Shibuya Incident ends, but its consequences spread immediately. The Jujutsu world responds not with compassion, but with fear and politics. Satoru Gojo is sealed, and the higher-ups blame him as an accomplice or treat his release as a criminal act. This is absurd morally, but politically it makes sense for them. Gojo was always a threat to the conservative leadership because he was too strong to control. With him sealed, they can move against his influence. Suguru Geto is sentenced again, but the body being active complicates everything because the person inside is not Geto. Masamichi Yaga, the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High, is sentenced to death for allegedly inciting Gojo and Geto. This shows how the higher-ups use the crisis to punish people connected to Gojo's faction. Yuji Itadori's suspended death sentence is reinstated. This is one of the most important consequences. Before Shibuya, Yuji was allowed to live temporarily because Gojo protected him, and because the plan was to have him consume all Sukuna's fingers before execution. After Sukuna's massacre in Shibuya, the argument for keeping Yuji alive becomes harder to defend in the eyes of the authorities. They see him as a vessel that can lose control and kill countless people. They do not care that Yuji himself fought to save others. They care that Sukuna is inside him, and that Gojo is no longer available to shield him. Yuta Akatsu is appointed as Yuji's executioner. This is where Season 2 closes the anime season with a major bridge to what comes next. Yuta was the central character of Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and he is one of the few special grade sorcerers. His return signals that the story after Shibuya will not be smaller. It will expand. The strongest teacher is gone, and another powerful figure is entering the field under orders to kill Yuji. But before thinking about the future, we need to sit with what Season 2 has done. Season 2 is built like a curse taking shape over time. The first arc shows the origin of Gojo's isolation and Geto's fall. The star plasma vessel mission is not just a flashback. It is the emotional blueprint for the entire season. Riko Amanai is a girl who should have been allowed to live. Instead, she becomes the center of adult systems, religious obsession, and assassin violence. Gojo and Geto are strong, but not strong enough at the right time. Toji wins through planning and timing. Gojo awakens, but too late. Geto survives, but with his faith poisoned. The second arc shows that the poison never disappeared. Geto's body becomes Kenjaku's instrument. Gojo's memory of Geto becomes the opening needed to seal him. The Jujutsu world's dependence on Gojo becomes the weakness that allows Shibuya to collapse. The students inherit a battlefield that adults failed to prevent. Yuji, who began the story wanting to save people, becomes the center of a massacre he did not choose. Nobara, who wanted to live proudly, falls in front of him. Nanami, who tried to protect the next generation, dies after doing exactly that. Megumi survives because both his father and Sukuna intervene for reasons he does not fully understand. Maki survives, but is burned badly. Toji is injured by Sukuna's domain. The Zenin clan and higher-ups remain ready to exploit the aftermath. Every victory in Shibuya carries a cost. Hanami dies, but Gojo is sealed. Dagon dies, but Jogo burns the survivors. Jogo dies, but Sukuna devastates the city. Mahito is defeated, but Kenjaku absorbs him and uses his technique. Yuji survives, but survival feels like punishment. The villains lose pieces, but the main plan succeeds. That is why Shibuya feels different from a normal battle arc. It is not a tournament. It is not a clean war where one side wins and the other retreats. It is a disaster engineered to remove the one person holding the balance together. Once Gojo is gone, every hidden weakness in the Jujutsu world becomes visible. The season also changes how we understand strength. Gojo is the strongest, but he cannot save Riko. He cannot save Geto from himself. He cannot prevent his own sealing once Kenjaku uses the perfect emotional trap. Toji has no cursed energy, but he defeats young Gojo and kills the star plasma vessel. Mahito is not physically the strongest enemy, but his technique and cruelty destroy Yuji emotionally. Nanami is not special grade, but his strength lies in responsibility. Nobara is not the strongest student, but her technique can wound Mahito's soul, and her will remains clear to the end. To-do loses the normal use of his technique, but still creates the opening that lets Yuji win. Yuji is not strong enough to save everyone, but he keeps standing when standing itself becomes almost impossible. Season 2 is also about the body and the soul. Toji's body overwhelms cursed energy expectations because it has no cursed energy at all. Gojo's body survives death because he learns reverse cursed technique at the edge of dying. Geto's body continues after Geto's death because Kenjaku steals it. Mahito reshapes bodies by touching souls. Kikichi wants a healed body so he can live normally. Sukuna uses Yuji's body to commit mass murder. Choso recognizes brotherhood through something deeper than ordinary memory. Nobara's face is changed by Mahito's touch, but her life and identity remain her own in the memories we see. Again and again, the season asks what a person is. a body, a soul, a memory, a role, or the choices they make before the end. For Gojo and Geto, the answer becomes tragic. Gojo becomes the strongest body of power in the Jujutsu world, but his heart remains tied to the friend he lost. Geto's body remains, but his soul is gone, and that absence becomes an insult every time Kenjaku smiles with his face. The body and soul do not align anymore. Gojo notices this wrongness, but noticing it does not save him. For Yuji, the question is even more painful. Yuji's body belongs to him, but Sukuna lives inside it. When Sukuna acts, Yuji suffers the consequences. This makes Yuji's existence morally complicated in the eyes of others and emotionally unbearable for himself. Season 2 forces him to confront that problem at its worst. It is one thing to know Sukuna is dangerous. It is another to wake up after Sukuna has destroyed part of a city. Yet Yuji keeps moving. Not because he has solved the guilt. He has not. He moves because Nanami, Nobara to do, and the people still alive make stopping impossible. His survival becomes an obligation. Megumi's story in Season 2 is quieter, but it is loaded with future meaning. His father returns and dies in front of him without Megumi understanding who he is. This means Megumi is touched by his past without receiving the comfort of knowing it. Toji's final act protects Megumi in a strange way, but it is not a normal reunion. It is a ghost of fatherhood appearing for a moment and vanishing. Megumi's summoning of Mahoraga also shows his dangerous instinct to sacrifice himself. He uses the ritual because he is willing to die if it means defeating the enemy. Sukuna prevents that death, but not out of compassion. Sukuna's attention toward Megumi is one of the most ominous threads in the season. It tells the viewer that Megumi's technique has a value even Megumi does not fully grasp. Nobara's fall is one of the season's most painful moments because it interrupts the trio at the heart of the present story. Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara were the first-year group that gave Season 1 much of its energy. Shibuya tears that structure apart. Megumi is unconscious and saved by Sukuna. Nobara is critically wounded by Mahito. Yuji is left conscious enough to watch and remember. The trio does not get a heroic group victory. They are separated and broken. Nanami's death marks the loss of one of the story's moral anchors. He was not idealistic like Yuji, not arrogant like Gojo, not corrupted like Geto. He was an adult who saw the ugliness clearly and still chose to do the work. His death tells us that decency is not protected by narrative fairness. Good people die in Shibuya, even when they deserve peace. Mahito's end is satisfying only on the surface. Yuji defeats him spiritually. Mahito runs. The curse finally fears the human he tried to break. But Kenjaku absorbing Mahito denies Yuji closure and transforms Mahito's power into a larger catastrophe. This is important because Jujutsu Kaisen often refuses simple emotional completion. Yuji does not get to neatly avenge Junpei, Nanami, and Nobara. He gets to survive into a worse world. Kenjaku is the true winner of Season 2. The disaster curses wanted a world where curses replace humans. Jogo, Hanami, Dagon, and Mahito all believed in the future of curses in different ways. But Kenjaku used them. Their strength, their hatred, and their growth all served his design. Jogo died to Sukuna. Nanami died to Gojo. Dagon died to Toji. Mahito was absorbed. The disaster curses caused immense damage, but they did not inherit the world. Kenjaku did. This makes Kenjaku frightening in a different way from Sukuna. Sukuna is immediate calamity. His presence turns the battlefield into a place of worshipful terror. He does what he wants because he can. Kenjaku is patient calamity. He prepares across years, bodies, and generations. He wins by arranging the board so that other people's emotions and ambitions serve him. The use of Geto's body is the perfect example. Geto's cursed spirit manipulation gives Kenjaku the technical ability to absorb and use curses like Mahito. Geto's face gives him the emotional weapon needed to seal Gojo. Geto's history gives him access to the wounds of the past. One stolen body becomes the center of the entire plan. Yuki's arrival prevents the ending from becoming total silence, but it does not reverse the outcome. She challenges Kenjaku, but Kenjaku leaves. The plan has moved beyond Shibuya. The new sorcerers and vessels have awakened. Gojo is sealed. The rules of the world have changed. When the season ends, it does not feel like an arc closing cleanly. It feels like a door opening into something worse. Now, let us retell the final stretch as a continuous emotional sequence, because this is the part the listener must understand clearly. After Sukuna destroys Mahoraga and devastates Shibuya with malevolent shrine, Yuji regains control and sees the aftermath. He realizes that Sukuna killed a massive number of people while using his body. Yuji is consumed by guilt, but he continues moving because the incident is not over. Nanami, burned and dying, continues fighting transfigured humans. His mind drifts to the peaceful life he once imagined in Malaysia. Mahito finds him. Yuji arrives just in time to see Nanami killed. Nanami entrusts the rest to Yuji before dying, and Mahito destroys him with idol transfiguration. Yuji attacks Mahito in rage. Elsewhere, Nobara fights Mahito's double. Her resonance damages the real Mahito and helps Yuji. Mahito switches positions with the double and reaches Nobara. He touches her face with idol transfiguration. Nobara remembers her childhood, Fumi, Sayori, and her desire to live freely. She tells Yuji that her life was not so bad. Then she falls, critically injured. Yuji collapses emotionally. Mahito beats him down. Todo arrives with Arata Nita. Arata stabilizes Yuji and gives a small possibility that Nobara may not be dead. Todo reminds Yuji that the living must carry the will of the fallen. Yuji stands again. Yuji and Todo fight Mahito together. Todo uses Boogie Woogie to confuse Mahito and create openings. Yuji strikes Mahito's soul. Mahito evolves through battle and transforms into a stronger soul form. Todo loses the normal use of his technique, but still tricks Mahito into reacting. Yuji lands a decisive black flash. Mahito's confidence breaks, and he runs in fear. Yuji follows, accepting that killing Mahito is his role. Kenjaku arrives in Geto's body. Mahito reaches for help, but Kenjaku absorbs him, using cursed spirit manipulation. Kenjaku uses Mahito's idol transfiguration through Uzumaki to awaken marked humans across Japan. creating new sorcerers and vessels. Choso confronts Kenjaku after realizing the ancient curse user is connected to the creation of the death paintings and to Yuji. Choso declares Yuji his brother and fights to protect him. Kyoto students arrive and try to help. Miwa sacrifices her future with the sword for one desperate attack, but Kenjaku blocks it. Yuram freezes many of the sorcerers. Yuki Tsukumo arrives and confronts Kenjaku, connecting the end of Shibuya back to the ideas discussed in Geto's past. Kenjaku explains enough to show that his plan has already begun, then leaves with Yuram. Gojo remains sealed. Afterward, the higher-ups declare terrible judgments. Gojo is treated as a criminal presence whose release is forbidden. Yaga is sentenced to death. Yuji's execution is reinstated. Yuta Akatsu is assigned to execute Yuji. The season ends with the world broken and the next conflict already forming. That is the full movement of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. It begins with two boys who believe they are the strongest together. It ends with one of them sealed inside a cursed object, and the other's stolen body being used to reshape the world. It begins with Riko Amanai being escorted toward a fate chosen for her. It ends with countless people across Japan being forced into Kenjaku's new plan without consent. It begins with Geto saying, "Sorcerers exist to protect non-sorcerers." It ends with Geto's body being used by someone who sees both sorcerers and non-sorcerers as pieces in an experiment. It begins with Gojo and Geto failing to save one girl. It ends with Yuji failing to save so many people that he can barely stand beneath the weight of it. And through all of it, the central question remains the same. What does it mean to save someone in a world where curses are born from human suffering? Gojo tries to answer through strength and education. He becomes the strongest, then trains students who might one day change the system. Geto tries to answer through purification by violence. He decides that ordinary humans are the source of curses and must be removed. Yuji tries to answer through compassion. He wants people to have proper deaths and wants to save whoever he can. Kenjaku answers through experimentation. He does not want to save humanity from cursed energy. He wants to push cursed energy to its next stage, regardless of the suffering required. Sukuna does not answer the question at all. He exists beyond it as pure selfish power. That is why Season 2 feels so heavy. It is not only about who wins each fight. It is about the failure of every simple answer. Strength is not enough. Kindness is not enough. Ideology becomes monstrous. Duty becomes unbearable. Survival becomes guilt. Even victory becomes another step in someone else's plan. Still, the characters continue. Gojo continues after Riko's death, and Geto's fall by becoming a teacher. Geto continues after breaking by becoming a curse user, though that path leads to his death and the theft of his body. Nanami continues after Heibara's death by returning to Jujutsu work and protecting Yuji. Nobara continues after leaving her village by living proudly until the moment she falls. To-do continues after Yuji breaks by dragging him back into the fight. Yuji continues after Sukuna's massacre, Nanami's death, and Nobara's injury, because there are still curses in front of him. This continuation is not clean hope. It is painful hope. It is the kind of hope that does not erase suffering, but refuses to let suffering be the final action. Season 2 also changes the viewer's understanding of the title Jujutsu Kaisen itself. The story is not simply about sorcery battles. It is about cycles of curses. A curse can be a monster born from negative energy, but it can also be a memory, an ideology, a responsibility, a final word, a body stolen after death, or guilt that keeps a person moving. Riko becomes a curse in Geto's heart. Geto becomes a curse in Gojo's heart. Sukuna becomes a curse inside Yuji's body. Nanami's final trust becomes something Yuji carries. Nobara's last words become both comfort and pain. Shibuya itself becomes a curse placed on the future of the series. The hidden inventory arc teaches us that the past is never past in Jujutsu Kaisen. The Shibuya Incident proves it. When Gojo is sealed, it is not because he lacks power. It is because he has a past. When Geto's body moves, it is not because Geto returned. It is because someone turned the dead into a weapon. When Yuji breaks, it is not only because of the present deaths, but because every previous failure and guilt returns at once. The story is always layering curses upon curses. Toji Fushiguro is another example of that layering. In the past, he is the man who kills Riko and nearly kills Gojo. He is the one who sets the tragedy in motion. In the present, his body returns and kills Dagon, saving sorcerers who would otherwise die. Then he chooses not to kill Megumi after learning his son did not become Zenin. Toji is not redeemed in a simple way, but his life and death leave consequences that are not only evil. He wounds the past and briefly protects the future. That complexity is part of what makes the season powerful. The disaster curses also carry complexity, even while being monstrous. Jogo believes curses are the true humans because they live honestly according to their feelings. Hanami wants to protect the earth from human destruction. Dagon grows from a quiet cursed womb into a powerful curse who cares about his companions. Mahito is fascinated by the soul and grows rapidly through cruelty. They are enemies, but they are not random. They have beliefs, bonds, and desires. Yet Kenjaku uses them all. This is another theme of Season 2. Being used. Riko is used by Jujutsu Society as the star plasma vessel. Kikichi is used by Mahito and Kenjaku because he wants a real body. The disaster curses are used by Kenjaku to seal Gojo and mature Mahito. Geto's body is used after death. Yuji's body is used by Sukuna. The civilians in Shibuya are used as shields and bargaining pieces. Even Gojo's love for Geto is used against him. The horror of the season is not only death. It is the stripping away of personhood. Characters are turned into vessels, tools, weapons, symbols, and sacrifices. The characters who resist that are the ones trying to insist on personhood. Geto offers Riko a choice. Nobara insists on living as herself. Nanami treats Yuji as a child worth protecting, not just Sukuna's vessel. Dedu calls Yuji brother when Yuji sees himself as nothing but guilt. Choso chooses brotherhood over the role Kenjaku's experiments created for him. That is why the emotional moments matter as much as the fights. Every time someone recognizes another person as a person, the story pushes back against the systems and curses that reduce them. Riko wanted to live. Geto saw Nanako and Mimiko as children who needed saving. Gojo saw Geto's body and remembered his friend, not a corpse or enemy tool. Nanami saw Yuji as a young sorcerer who should not carry the adult world's failures alone. Nobara wanted her friends to know that her life had value. Todo saw Yuji as someone who could stand again. Choso saw Yuji as his brother. These recognitions do not prevent tragedy, but they give meaning to resistance. The ending of Season 2 is intentionally unresolved. Gojo is still sealed. Yuji is marked for execution. Nobara's condition is uncertain. Megumi is unconscious after Mahoraga. Maki is badly injured. The Jujutsu world is politically unstable. Kenjaku's plan has begun. Sukuna remains inside Yuji, and his interest in Megumi remains ominous. The old structure cannot simply return. In a normal story, the end of a season might restore balance. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 destroys balance. That destruction is the point. Before Shibuya, the world had a hidden order. Curses existed, sorcerers fought them. Gojo stood at the top, and the schools trained the next generation. There were problems, corruption, and danger, but there was still a sense that the system could continue. After Shibuya, that illusion is gone. The strongest can be sealed. The higher-ups can turn on their own people. Ancient curse users can return. Civilians can be dragged into Jujutsu on a massive scale. Sukuna can turn one moment of control into mass death. The students are no longer protected by the shape of the school story. Season 2 is the bridge from introduction to collapse. It takes everything the viewer thought they understood and asks what remains when the strongest person is removed. For Yuji, what remains is guilt and duty. For Megumi, what remains is danger and hidden potential. For Nobara, what remains is uncertainty and the memory of a life she claimed as her own. For Gojo, what remains is imprisonment and the bitter knowledge that his friend's body is being used. For Kenjaku, what remains is opportunity. For the world, what remains is the beginning of a new nightmare. And that is why Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 is so important. It is not only a continuation. It is the season that reveals the real shape of the story. It shows that curses are not just enemies to defeat. They are consequences. The consequence of fear. The consequence of grief. The consequence of systems that sacrifice children. The consequence of power concentrated in one person. The consequence of hatred left to grow inside someone who once wanted to protect. Hidden inventory shows the curse being born. Premature death shows it taking root. Shibuya shows it blooming. By the end, the listener should understand exactly what happened. In 2006, Gojo and Geto were students assigned to protect Riko Amanai, the star plasma vessel meant to merge with Master Tenjin. Riko was targeted by curse users and the Time Vessel Association. Toji Fushiguro took the assassination job and used strategy to exhaust Gojo. Riko was given a chance to reject the merger and chose to live, but Toji killed her. Toji defeated Geto and nearly killed Gojo. Gojo awakened reverse cursed technique, defeated Toji, and learned about Megumi. Geto saw ordinary humans celebrate Riko's death, then slowly lost faith in protecting non-sorcerers. After Heibara's death, Yuki's conversation, and the village abuse of Nanako and Mimiko, Geto massacred the village, killed his parents, and became a curse user. Gojo confronted him, but let him leave. Years later, in the present, Kenjaku controlled Geto's corpse. Kikichi Muta made a deal with Mahito to heal his body, then tried to warn everyone, but died fighting Mahito. On Halloween night in Shibuya, curtains trapped civilians and forced Gojo to enter. Gojo fought the disaster curses underground, killed Nanami, and used unlimited void for 0.2 seconds to stop the transfigured humans. Kenjaku appeared with Geto's face, opened the prison realm, and sealed Gojo by exploiting Gojo's memories of Geto. After Gojo was sealed, the sorcerers entered a collapsing battlefield. Yuji spread the news. Teams fought curse users and tried to break barriers. Toji's body returned through a seance technique. Dagon evolved and trapped Nanami, Maki, Neobite, and Megumi in a domain, but Toji entered and killed Dagon. Toji then fought Megumi, learned his name was Fushiguro, and killed himself. Jogo burned Nanami, Maki, and Neobito, then fed Yuji many Sukuna fingers. Sukuna awakened, killed Mimiko and Nanako, defeated Jogo, saved Megumi from Mahoraga for his own reasons, destroyed Mahoraga with malevolent shrine and fire, and devastated Shibuya. Yuji woke up to the destruction and nearly broke from guilt. Then Nanami died in front of Yuji at Mahito's hands. Nobara fought Mahito's double and damaged Mahito with resonance, but the real Mahito touched her face and left her critically injured. Todo and Arata arrived. Arata stabilized Yuji and gave slight hope for Nobara. Todo helped Yuji stand again. Yuji and Todo fought Mahito. Todo lost the normal use of boogie woogie, but helped create an opening. Yuji defeated Mahito emotionally and physically, making him run in fear. Kenjaku arrived, absorbed Mahito, and used idol transfiguration through Uzumaki to awaken marked humans across Japan. Choso realized Yuji was his brother and turned against Kenjaku. Kyoto students arrived, but could not stop Kenjaku. Uram froze the sorcerers. Yuki Tsukumo arrived, but Kenjaku escaped after beginning his larger plan. Gojo remained sealed. After Shibuya, the higher-ups declared Gojo's release a crime, sentenced Yaga to death, reinstated Yuji's execution, and assigned Yuta Akatsu as Yuji's executioner. That is the complete anime story, covered by Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. It is the story of the strongest friendship breaking in the past. It is the story of the strongest sorcerer being removed in the present. It is the story of a city becoming the place where the old world ends. And most of all, it is the story of how every curse begins with something human. A girl wants to live, and her death becomes a wound. A boy wants to protect people, and his grief becomes hatred. A teacher wants to raise strong students, and his love for a dead friend becomes the trap that seals him. A student wants to save people, and his own body becomes the weapon of a massacre. That is Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. A story where power is overwhelming, but never enough by itself. A story where the past waits patiently. A story where curses are not only born from fear, but from love, regret, duty, and the things people cannot let go.